Is it that cold out, John?
Who's speaking to me?
Oh, it's Jerry, he's on Zoom.
Is it that cold out there, John?
Oh, yeah, it
Okay,
is. It was this, when I don't have that hair,
yeah, I just I don't notice that problem as much, John.
you're wonderful.
I. Yeah,
It's just.
We're working through it, so working on it. Yeah, it was what Mary was asking for.
Yeah, instead of.
Sure. If you want, we can print it out, give it to everybody, but probably next meeting we'll have a permanent copy. But I think.
Well, you, okay.
Do you want me to run back downstairs and make copies?
You let everybody have it.
Well, yeah.
We're just trying to work things.
It's $3. It's for. Hey, Jane, next Monday.
I like to
meet. Okay,
Actually.
the joint. He shot you.
This would be more important than.
I will tell everybody.
Well, but it's one of the items on the agenda.
Jeremy probably, he's one of them.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I think it's a little premature. Some of these.
Next week, I got crazy, we're gonna do
Fire still.
I'd like to go over that with you. But I've got one of the issues.
Sure.
That's all.
But-
Nothing major, but.
In order to make progress, it's kind of,
Yes.
I don't know, I thought it was important to have it
Have a
on
meeting on Monday
next Monday's
in the
meeting.
evening, so it's real
Just
day.
even if it's introduced as this is for,
Back meeting in the
We're-
morning on
we're still working.
Tuesday.
Right,
so,
it distills the document down.
BBC
to-
Wednesday morning,
Otherwise,
other than that, I'm
for
free.
lay people, it's not.
So when's good?
We can Wednesday, yeah, Monday,
First
Tuesday,
things, you just gotta go.
or late morning.
You know, what does this even mean?
mhm.
What about Thursday?
Right?
First thing's always
Saturday, you know, it's how
Yeah, I can do Thursday,
things
that's
are
fine,
gonna cost,
9
how
o'clock.
long it would take.
Yes.
right?
It might be something that was just over the phone over time. Let me see what this other stuff.
By
is.
chance,
If I ever think it makes sense, when I got to break it up here,
Okay,
if not, it's a white like, well, then,
Yeah.
I don't
Okay,
give them and say, hey, this is good. That way, you can proofread, so we're not getting.
I spoke with
Yeah.
George.
But actually, because of the, I carry for some issues.
Called up.
Jeff, yeah. And,
like engineering letters or?
No, this was just over inspection that she said.
I mean, you were all upset.
So we didn't have that, you guys, I thought.
And you can't.
They
do
were
that.
talking about, it was good to mention about, but
It's
she's
not,
not.
you just can't.
Mhm.
You know, so.
That's not.
He's always, very knowledgeable when I'm talking, but I don't know a lot.
Not to know.
Very knowledgeable. No, knowledge was good. I didn't realize, I think he was one who was social. He was much.
Did she bark at you again?
Good. He's like, yeah.
You saw her just shake, she just shakes, shakes.
That's what
Are you working
She's
on?
getting more comfortable when I did the hatter, and then her hatter out of the.
All everything.
She just getting it. Oh, she was up on the.
Good.
Thank you.
With a C, right?
Like, it just does, like, somebody has to check, it's usually the person just not read on song. So it's like, conversation, just get old, I will always know.
How you doing, John?
Yeah, you know, Tom's there, actually.
He's
So I
got
was
my
working
son
on
going
it.
on
I was
this.
like, oh, like, any more fun, maybe, he was like,
Yeah, I ended up nervous.
ask me about that, but no.
I mean, I previously go back to Gary. Gary did find some people, he was
Doing the Chinese at 7 this morning for teenagers.
Which.
How's that going?
They were so quiet, but I made them,
Tom did, if you
you
haven't.
know, I made them stop and discuss it.
Yeah.
Like,
This plan, and then they had to go out
From my.
and run.
It's like,
some 18 minutes. of the engagement activity, they don't have that. You may have gotten, name it, explain it, and say that. About 60 kids. Wow.
I gotta start here.
Yeah.
They actually learn.
It's-
Yeah.
And then.
So-
Yeah, we gotta do that, we wanna.
Yes, it would be-
Start.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'll.
Well, the skills girls, like.
Right.
I was trying to afford it all.
Where are you? Matt.
It's like Brady Bunch.
I hate it.
One million.
Here's yours back.
My brother sent it.
All right, I think we're ready to go.
Hey, how are you?
My clock says 6:03, so I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is Tuesday. Oh, what is it? March 26th, 2024, and 6:03 p.m. And let's go ahead and get started. It's a regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen and the Town of Georgetown. Start with the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. I am Police Judge Lynn Kelsey. Todd Connell is not going to be able to be here tonight. Amanda Cooper here. John Jennings.
Here.
Dwight Dwayne Gazinski.
Here.
Mary Smith.
Here.
And Rich Bailey.
Here.
Agenda approval, are we yes, I think Mary wanted to add something to the agenda.
Just on the discussion, the annual sales tax comparison that you requested that we see or kind of pay attention to,
And you want that too?
just under, well,
Under the discussion item.
yeah, let's just bury it towards the end.
All right, we'll put it in a committee.
Yeah. There you go.
Anything else?
I motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Fantastic. Audience business. Members of the audience have 5 minutes to present any matter of interest relating to the business of the town that is not already on the agenda. Who do we have here for audience business? Hi, James.
James Billingsley, I brought up the issue last time and you said you were gonna check into it and I was here to find out what you discovered.
We're having an update on the contact key tonight.
An update or a discussion about the violation of all the ordinances?
We have not found any violations of ordinances.
I'm sorry, the sale of liquor on public property.
We got a permit from the state.
Required a.
No, it didn't.
Went vote. And as I was told, you're looking for.
There was nobody within 100 feet. And so we ended up going to the next overboard, which we informed everyone that was more than 100 feet. So we gave all written notifications that went above and beyond what the statute said.
So our ordinances requires a vote from the selectmen to sell it on our property.
The special event permits, we posted that for the liquor, and I think that's what you're talking about, is the
Yeah.
liquor, right? So we post the property, they apply for a special event permit, and you post it for 10 days, and we did post a hearing for that. And we didn't have anybody show up.
I didn't know about it. And last time I asked about it last month. There was nobody knew about those for the selectmen.
It doesn't, the special event permits don't go to the board for a vote, it's done through me, actually.
Say the code that authorizes the violation of all the city ordinances. The
No,
lighting, the sound.
no, I was just referring to the liquor part of it, because you were asking about the liquor part.
Yeah, I thought that was part of it.
But the sound and the lights, I mean, the amplified sound permits, we have to our ordinance says we have to notify people within 100 feet. And so none of the houses along Clear Creek Drive they're
Yes,
beyond 100
the
feet?
speaker was within 100 feet of my property.
The speaker was, yeah.
Yes, it literally was off my back property. So the noise ordinance also requires the town administrator to do a sound survey.
Mhm.
And what was the dB level that you discovered doing your sound survey on that?
So you're saying there was a speaker within 100 feet? of
Yes, it
your
was right off the backside of my property behind the bush.
I wasn't aware of that. These are things that we did discuss when we did a debrief time. And, we went through, and we're gonna go through it today, strengths of that event, weaknesses of that event, opportunities to change the event to make it better, and what threatens that event. And so we do have all those things, and speakers were addressed in that meeting.
Yes, as I saw one right off the back of my property. And the lighting, the temporary lighting that was off the backside of my property with the generator running. These are a lot of things you didn't have to discuss about. There's no planning. The noise ordinance says, I shall be informed. As you told me, that property is up to my property, so anything on that property, I'm within 100 feet of because I'm totally up to it.
Well, that's not where the event was. The event,
You told me the event was on the water and I was not allowed to use my open access to that lake.
Okay,
So these are questions that you said you were going to check into.
correct, and so it's coming in, I asked for a written list of all of your complaints, the written
I
complaints.
never
that-
got that request for written thing.
I believe I did when you brought your
You asked
concerns.
at, the list.
Okay,
Yeah. No, I was
so,
not the written complaint. You said you're going to investigate on, it, and I'm here to find out what we found out about.
well, it sounds like I'm being made aware of circumstances that I wasn't aware of when you first brought the complaint to us. So it's very difficult to fully investigate. We thought we had. That's why the debrief was on the agenda tonight. Perhaps when we have the debrief later in the meeting, you can listen to it. We can address anything that wasn't addressed in that debrief at a later time, because I'm learning things tonight that were not in the written complaint that we got.
No, I
And-
filled out the written complaint saying that this article was violated, where the statements say it shall be informed.
Okay,
I shall be notified by mail. And I was not.
okay,
And those are the points on that one. And as I came in last time, I had a stack of ordinances that were all violations. So it seems to be twisting the facts here to solve
I'm
this.
sorry if
situation.
that's the way it's appearing to you, but, okay,
Okay, so I will,
let's go ahead and give the debrief later in the meeting. And then anything that hasn't been addressed by the debrief, we will further investigate. But I need real specifics, you just made us aware that the speaker and the lights were closer to your property than anybody was aware of, so.
if you read the ordinance, they were way beyond the normality. What is the city's definition of excessive noise?
It's probably in the ordinances. I don't know right off
It's
the top of
written.
my head.
Do you know what the definition concerning you're supposed to take a DB later?
listen, I understand that you're frustrated, okay? And we had an opportunity for you to come and share your concerns at the debrief, and you did not come.
I was not aware of it.
Well, we had posted it, and so, but also, this event, was not perfect. We do understand that, and that we're gonna try to make it better in the following years to come. there are many things that I'd like to sit down and try to work with you to show that we are making progress on this. And I've invited you to come to talk to us about best ways to set up speakers. And by the way, the town didn't do this, this is a bit, but for next year, we would love to hear some of your ideas of how to reduce lighting and reduce the sound. So we'd love to hear it, but we had 3 weeks to plan this. So were there things not done perfectly? Probably, but we tried to do the best we could with the people that were here, with our staff. We were all in this together doing this. So it wasn't intentional violations. There wasn't intentional harm, directed towards anybody specifically. We did the best we could, and we did notify everybody in town.
Can I jump in here? As a representative for Business Promotions Commission, I would offer that perhaps you and I can sit down with you and go through this separately from tonight, because obviously some of the concerns that you're bringing up weren't within the parameters of our special event application, which kind of falls under business promotions, which is why I'm inserting myself into this. And let's see how we can address that and perhaps answer your questions or show you where we were in compliance with our code and where you feel we weren't in compliance. And let's the three of us at least, and let's get our event person in possibly, she'll have more information and try to resolve this. Because obviously we're not giving you the answers that you want tonight, and I want to be able to respond to that. So if, we can figure out a time, maybe not even now, but, we'll all be in touch with each other. We know how to get in touch with each other and figure out a convenient time for us to meet. I'd be happy to do that if that works.
That sounds great.
Are you,
Yes, I work quite a bit.
okay,
The second point is, I was wondering about getting a permit to build a pier like the Cabin Creek Brewery has.
that's a town.
That's a town pier. It does not belong to
They,
Cabin Creek.
they have lights on it, they have their banner on it, it looks like it's theirs.
Well, it isn't, so, okay,
So
so,
is there a way I can get something like that?
those were expensive.
We'd have to look into that.
Yeah,
That's kind of a.
Access to, those are for public use. Are you proposing a pier on your property for public
Well,
use?
it's just the way they have it roped off and they have their lights wrapped around it and they still have their big banner on it. It implies it's theirs.
Well, okay, I think,
We can address it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
it wasn't.
they have one, why can't I have one?
well, they don't have one.
Well, it looks
It's
like
in
they-
proximity, but it is not theirs.
Yeah,
So,
but they've claimed it by.
understood. You brought it to our
Well, thank you.
attention. Thank you. Okay, anyone else?
Good evening, Bruce Shank, 1431 Marion Street, and a member of the Town Planning Commission. A few things. First, the Planning Commission passed a motion 4-1 at our February meeting to recommend increasing the number of seats from 5 to 7. Part of that motion was if the 7-seat expansion was approved by the Board of Selectmen to fill the now vacant seats with 2 of the alternate members of the commission. The latter part of that motion doesn't appear to have been fully presented to the Board of Selectmen for action since the resolution was adopted after the second reading. Second, in communications after the meeting, the Planning Commission chair stated he wanted to revisit the selection of alternates to members for the Board of Selectmen's approval. The chair said to me that he was approached by an alternate member after the meeting who changed their mind and now wanted to be a member of the commission instead of remaining an alternate, as they stated during the meeting. This is suspect to ex parte communication to alter a past motion that has been brought to the Board of Selectmen for action. Third, the Planning Commission had these issues arise. We could have addressed them at our March meeting. Unfortunately, the town double booked a standing Planning Commission date, time, and location. It happens. However, the Planning Commission was the one made to cancel, and now we might be kicking this down the road into late April or beyond. I believe the Board of Selectmen should take up the full motion that was passed by the Planning Commission 4-1 to fill the now 2 vacant seats with the named alternates. The Planning Commission has 4 alternate members to fill vacancies. If our motion is not adopted in full, as I understand it, at our next meeting, we will have 2 vacancies, and any of our alternate commission members could fill those seats for that meeting to vote on who may fill those seats permanently by another recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
That seems to be a potential conflict of interest that could be avoided by going into our next meeting with a full slate of 7 members that our original motion included. Just to close out, we should be conducting business by what is presented at the time of public meetings, not by what is discussed in retrospect after a meeting has adjourned. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll look into that.
When is your next planning commission meeting?
April 20th?
17th? When do you meet? The Wednesdays?
Third Wednesday.
Yes, April 17th.
So we'll have another board meeting prior to
Yeah.
that?
Yes. Is there any way you would send that in writing, just so I can read it through it, like, or a summarized version?
Yeah.
Cause I want to make
So
sure
You
that.
can email it to me, yeah.
Is that okay? Thank you, I appreciate it, I just want to make sure that, like,
Make sure we're following the trail.
I know, I'm not, yes, it's a process.
And Jen, do you have the minutes from that?
Yeah, I mean, the motion, he's right, the motion did include wanting to recommend the 2 alternates to become members. And I think that just innocently got overlooked.
But I
and it
thought
didn't
that was
happen.
discussed here.
No,
No?
actually, we approved the ordinance on second reading.
Yeah.
And then after I went home, I went, oh, you know what, we could have actually taken care of those vacancies if we had had a proposal for who was supposed to fill them, but it wasn't in front of us, so.
I mean, I did talk to Jake Cooper and he was saying, cause I was like, what do you wanna have on the agenda? And he was saying that, they wanted to revisit who they were gonna have be the regular members. From what Kathy was saying, because Kathy had missed that meeting and so she didn't really get to meet everybody. I was asking him if he wanted that to be on the next agenda and he goes, well, I think we're gonna wait because. So that was the bit where I heard from him today, just to fill you in.
But so right now you have 4 alternates, right?
We currently have 4 alternates that are members of. the
Okay. And 2 of them were somewhat slated to go into the,
Yeah, at our meeting, 3 were present. We asked who wanted to be, members of the commission and who wanted to be an alternate. 2 said they wanted to be members, 1 said they wanted to be an alternate, so we just agreed with the motion to have those 2 that wanted to be, to fill the seats.
and now there's kind of a change in that
And
line.
now there's
Okay.
apparently something going
Okay.
on after the meeting to change things around while the motion is on the table.
Right, thanks for the Cliff Notes version.
Well,
That's- Yeah, okay,
yeah,
so we should,
let's pick it up as we are able to, given all of the complexities that you've just made us aware of, so.
but we do have time to be able to rectify that prior to your next meeting.
Could.
True,
Or
or there could be more debate about it,
or, yeah,
but yeah,
I'm just thinking if that's not an appropriate action and it needs to wait until after they have their next meeting. I don't know, so let's look into that.
Well, they still have their full requirements to the meeting.
Yeah.
Correct? That still works.
Yeah.
Well, so, if we have now 7 seats and we go to our next meeting with 2 vacancies. Any of those 2 alternates can now fill.
Let's look into it further.
Okay.
Cause there's probably a bylaw or something.
We don't have the legal expertise to figure
That was
that
just my
out.
concern, so I just wanted to. bring it up.
Thank you for.
there's reference to the next criteria.
Okay, anyone else for audience business?
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on, we have the tables. The dates on the tables tonight are from March 8th through March 21st, 2024. Any questions or comments on the tables?
I'll make a motion to approve the payables dated March 8th, 2024 through March 21st, 2024.
I'll second.
The movement and seconded to approve the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have the minutes of our last regular meeting, which was on March 12th. Any corrections? I have given a few to, Jennifer already, summarizing mine. And under staff present, we had Ryan Zabel. We also had Jake Cooper and Bob Hamilton in audience that night. On page 4, Jennifer edited the statement that's in there that says I-70 will be closed on Thursday. She was working on, I don't remember how you phrase that.
I like the
With
premonition.
anticipation, I think it's something, I have that, I don't think I forgot.
I thought you had ESP.
Anyhow.
Yeah, but I think that's what I wrote.
Yeah, and then, under the administrator's report, met with Kurt Sukup, owner of Bighorn Crossing project, and he submitted revised stamped engineer drawings that, were in response to Craig Abrahamson's and Ryan Zabel's Public Works Supervisor's comments on the original plans. And then on the very last page, instead of watershed protection survey, it should say watershed protection permit, and then just for clarity, insert the words for Excel. Those are my corrections. Anybody else?
Make the motion to approve the minutes from March 12th as amended.
Second,
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from our March 12th meeting as amended. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next we have a quote from Wagner for the street grader repairs.
Okay, so this is something I brought up last time. This motor grader that we have, is the piece of equipment that has a blade at the bottom and it helps to grade our roads. It's the only piece of equipment we have like this in town, and, it is, out of order. One of the hydraulic hoses, underneath the cab has, busted. And that's once this is out, the whole equipment is gone. We can't do anything about it. So we got quotes, it's 24,000 something to fix this piece of equipment. You would think, why does it cost so expensive? Because it's just a hose. Well, the problem is you have to take the whole cab off. And there's multiple hoses underneath it, and they suggested, if you're gonna do that, that's the expensive part of this equipment, is removing the cab, fixing the broken hoses, but you might as well fix all the hoses that are underneath that cab. And so with the hoses and the cab, and fixing this, it's gonna cost $24,034.90. And so, we are approaching mud season, and so snow is gonna be leaving probably in the next month or so. And we're trying to get ready because there's a lag time of getting this equipment fixed. So we're hitting the right time in order to get this equipment fixed so that we can be ready for when spring comes to fix our roads. And so that's what I'm asking the board to consider allowing us to go ahead and do.
While you have that cab off, is there other stuff besides hoses that needs to be upgraded?
That's a good
Belts or other things that, while you have it off, or they just recommending it's just the hoses?
So in the quote, they list all the things that they recommend to fix. So it's actually a very lengthy list, that they're gonna be doing multiple things other than hoses too. So it's small little parts, it's things that are highly recommended, that this is the time to do this if you're gonna take the cab off. And so, yeah, it's a good question because that's what they suggested. So you have lots of little small things that they're gonna be doing.
Long list.
I'm certainly in favor of this because it's for our road maintenance, but I know we haven't budgeted for this, so how is Road and Bridge looking at compensating for this budget wise? Mr. Treasurer,
Well,
how are we gonna fix this down the line?
there's a couple things. This will wipe out their,
Equipment.
their equipment maintenance line item, pretty much. And wipe it out for the year. But I think later in the meeting, Rick will explain some other things. So, yes, it's there.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't just throw you under the bus there, but, it is there, but it wipes it out.
Okay, I mean, I just don't want us to lose sight of the fact that it's, you know,
Yeah.
Something else may break in 6
yeah, I
months.
mean, it's necessary, then, so how are we gonna?
I'm trying to
get around it?
remember now, was it this one that was covered, or was it the grader that was covered under that
This is the
maintenance
grader.
item?
This is a greater.
It is the-
This is,
Not, I mean,
this
the-
is,
The backhoe.
the backhoe wiped out the budget.
Okay.
This is over and above.
Yeah.
Okay,
Above
but
and beyond.
this is something that Rick.
Yeah, I've got an idea.
Okay.
Later.
Okay.
I just
So,
need your
sorry
approval
about
moving
that.
forward.
You know, like a bake sale or something.
Everyone start making cookies now. Okay.
Yeah.
I move to approve the quote from Wagner Cat to provide the replacement hydraulic hoses for the motor grader not to exceed $24,034.90.
I'll second it.
Okay, been moved and seconded to approve the quote from Wagner Cat. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, discussion items. First on our list of discussion items is childcare needs in Georgetown. Jessica Trebek is here to talk to us about it.
Thanks, everyone. I brought a last minute handout. Do you need a copy to add to the agenda?
Yes, please.
Okay, can I give you the one after I finish? Okay, cool. So there's two sheets here. I'll tell you that the first one, on the first side is just kind of an abbreviation from a survey that the group I'm working with is called Expanding Early Care and Learning, Clear Creek County, EECL for short, so I'll just refer to it as that moving forward. But last summer, we set out a survey to kind of gauge child care needs. We only got, I think, 23 respondents. So as you can imagine, it's kind of a microcosm of the community. Because, you know, with any survey, it's just kind of hard to get, oh, there's 2 extra. Yeah, do you need one for Rob?
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks. So do know that like some of this has been edited for conciseness. If you would like to see the full survey results, I'm happy to share a link, because I don't want you to think that I edited or did anything to the results to enhance my argument. And I want to start off by saying the request right now is not immediately for funding. It's to request that town staff be allowed to kind of look into this and work with the other groups that are working on this and see what options or possibilities might be out there. So I do just want to go over how much this impacts our local economy. On the back of that first sheet I handed out, I know that might not, like, I know there's a lot wrapped up in lodging tax, but I just wanted to borrow the language that was in there and emphasize the child care for workforce, that's in that language. And then I, kind of highlighted the areas that George GCS is, I'm sorry, to really clarify, this is to expand the current childcare situation that is at GCS into the summer. Sorry for skipping that. So GCS did a really good job of pulling together a toddler room and a pre-K room. And so that's what I'm referring to extending throughout the summer. So as you can see, like our economy is really robust in those 2 summer months that GCS is on break. So that's May 31st, usually about to mid-August. So we're looking for like a 2-month window. The thing is, with our economy being a tourist-based economy, knocking parents out of that economy due to a lack of childcare makes it really difficult, not just for parents trying to earn a living, but also for the shops trying to keep staff in it. So that's kind of the argument on a really bottom line level, and I hope that you read some of the comments from some of the parents on how impacted they are by the lack of childcare. I mean, it takes a 2-income house down to a 1-income household. I know everybody here knows the issue pretty well, so I'll spare going into it too in depth. So currently, we've been talking a lot with the GCS school board. Right now, they're still open to the idea and seeing like how far can we carry this. We just learned today that the current licensing does extend throughout the summer, so there's not an adjustment needed to the licensing. This is just an email I pulled, I drafted to a bunch of people, so it's a little it's a little rough, so if you don't mind that, but it kind of gives an overview of where the discussion has been so far. The options are, because when it comes to funding, right, so we're looking at several options. The group I work with, EPL, has a little bit to contribute. We're working on our nonprofit status right now, hoping to talk to Henderson Mine, also be talking to the county commissioners, and then enrollment. So enrollment ties back to what the licensing is. Currently, we're at 10 in the toddler room and 10 to 16 in the pre-K room, but capacity is greater than that. So we do have to figure out if that's an extent and a modification to the licensing or not. But when we're looking into how this will be funded, the number of children for enrollment will impact that. So I just put all the considerations. I don't know if you want me to go through it or read, if you can read through it. We know food is an issue. Parents will bring snacks and lunch. We understand that building maintenance and projects need to be done. We're working with the school district on that. We've been coordinating with them. They're also on board with the plan to extend the summer GCS program. So right, this is just a request then to see if the board will approve town staff to kind of look into this further.
Are you guys doing any school-aged childcare during the summer? Because if you're doing the early childhood, that may be why you're not reaching capacity. Because some of those 10, 11, 12-year-olds may be, if there's not a place for them, they may be having to provide childcare for those families.
So, I can feel that one. The rec district has a program that, allows kids 5 to 12. And it's a summer.
But that's in Idaho Springs, not
It
here.
is, and so, but it is, a really comprehensive program that most of our school-age families really come as fast for. Because it's an adventure camp, and then they also do several mini camps. And so their spots fill up really fast.
Yeah.
The capacity for GCS to take a school-age program on in addition to it early is probably pretty limited. And that hinges on the restrictions that exist for having to keep toddlers away from school-age kids. So GCS is an ideal facility for early kids in the county. We were identified really early on as being able to fill that need because we have a separate need. So the kids in a traditional daycare setting, you are obligated to keep kids of a certain age away from tinies, just for safety reasons.
Understood.
Yeah.
That stuff's in my wheelhouse. I mean, we just broke ground today on what we're changing a teen center into an early childhood
That's
center
awesome.
in one of our big sites in Commerce City. We have 25 sites, 7 or 8 of them are funded by 21st Century grants.
We've
Which I
had
know
those.
Carlson and the rec center work together on,
Mhm.
but it seems like a very limited after-school program right now, the number of hours provided and that sort of thing, except
And the cost of adventure camp is full disclosure, it's going up this year. It's been 21st century backed, for the last, I wanna say post-COVID, since we've had it. And so, cause that's, my kids go to that program in the summer, and it's going up in cost significantly, so that grant is limited. GCS also did access 21st century, this is my schoolwork hat. We accessed the grant in 2021 and 2022 as well, but I don't know what our current status on that is.
it's usually like a 3 or 5 year grant, it would diminishing after 3 years or
We
something.
ran out, maybe we started in 2020.
I would like to be, maybe part of those discussions. This is what I do for 40 some years. We have 25 sites. The one I semi-retired from had a spring break program today. I was training some of the teens to, be work-based learners. And yes, you do have older kids, there has to be a separate program. But I would like to, look into it. And I also know some of the funding streams. Like some of my teams last year went to DC, they did 2-3 days of training and advocated at Senator Bennett's office, Senator Hickenlooper's office for a $2.1 billion support for 21st century grants.
Funding is the ticket, because
Yeah.
just full disclosure, GCS is not in a position.
And there is no childcare in Clear Creek County.
Well, and that's what I should have pointed
Non-existent.
to, is that the reason this is 5 and under is because that's where the current
The need
gap is. And even though there's I know there's a wait list for adventure camp. It's not to say that there's not a need for that 5 and up. It's just that there's nothing right now for 5 and under. And GCS is like, it's so close to being able to fill that for the summer.
We're
But
currently doing the only, 18-month program, Captain.
yeah,
And then, and food programming, we work with the food bank of the Rockies, but I'm sure you could work with Loaves and Fishes, and they get reimbursement for every meal that they serve. I don't know if you need to have that nonprofit status, but they're always looking for sites to expand to deliver meals to, at breakfast and lunch
yeah,
for
that's
those,
great.
for those programs.
That could be really helpful too, because food is an issue. And then to Amanda's point too, like this can't move forward with any money from GCS. They're just tapped out. So we're kind of looking at all possible threads and funds and individuals and communities that we can kind of pool from. The idea is to kind of limp us through the summer, because then in following years, they'll be building 103, GCS's program will be, I think, a little more foundational and robust. Like, so I acknowledge that this is last minute, but GCS's program started in the fall, and it's, it fell through the cracks. It's no one person was responsible for not getting this in shape for summer.
Summer was on anyone's radar.
Yeah, it's just, this is where we ended up, and so we have the chance to have a Band-Aid, we're really close.
I'd like to remind the board, though, that we had this discussion and we were going to have a work session on formulating potentially a commission. This came out of BPC as to how we were going to utilize those funds that we were receiving from the lodging tax. And we haven't had that discussion yet. And maybe this is what's going to drive our timeline on that. And instead of, kicking the can down the road, because this is going to be one of many that is going to come to the town asking for funding, and we're building that pool of funds. And how is it going to be dispersed? And so I think this is almost putting the cart before the horse. I appreciate the gas on it, but we need to sit down and decide how that's going to be, or is that going to fall into staff? And is that going to be then every project that comes up, is that going to be overwhelming to staff? If you can have people that have expertise in the different areas, whether it's the childcare piece or whether it's the housing piece, or other tourism enhancements that are going to help filter through all of those potential projects.
Well, I also think, I'm so sorry, Jessica, I just got one thing, I didn't mean to get wrong, but the other piece I would, tell everybody is that the strategic plan for GCS does include the hope of a 12-month program by fall of this year, which would push us then further into that area of being able to support people with young kids. The toddler room filled up very, very quickly. Our pre-K did not fill up this year. There is definitely concerns over the execution of UPK at the state level that we think has impacted that. UPK has not been a very smooth rollout, but that is beyond our scope of control. I apologize.
No, and then I would also say to the point of the pre-K room not filling up, I do see the potential for that to be different in the summer, because the 2 other pre-K programs in the county at King Margrethe and Carlson will not have those summer care programs that GCS could potentially have. So the current numbers of enrollment in our GCS pre-K room would expand for the summer.
And that's good in the law.
Yeah, and then just speaking to Mary's point really quick, I would like to suggest that maybe this could be a situation, or could there be opportunity in which, just because this is the first situation doesn't mean it sets a precedent, that we can acknowledge that this is kind of an outlier of a situation, that there's, just this Band-Aid that's needed to get us through the summer, and then the committee can put together how it wants these funds normally to be discussed. And it doesn't have to always fall to staff. I would just hope that this situation isn't, can't move forward because it may set a precedent. I would ask that maybe it could be an outlier for the sake of our community members.
Do you have any idea what expectation for funding?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Good question. Did you?
Yeah.
I have it.
Oh, you.
I have the number, let me just, I don't have it up, give me a
Yeah, no
second.
problem. So I'll talk to that while you're looking for it. So we have been working with, the school board to get a budget. So I worked with Amanda to get a line item based on their current budget. Their accountant was off for spring break. So he looked at, which was just this last week, so he looked at it today and yesterday. I didn't get it, it sounds like Amanda got it.
He didn't give any formal back, we just spoke with the
Oh.
conversation you and I had, I'm
Okay.
trying to pull up your budget that you did, your
Oh.
draft budget.
So what was your pie in the sky number?
I
We're
don't
all
think
sitting
there
down.
wasn't- I know, right? There wasn't anything on that draft budget is the problem, because so I'm
So
sorry.
you were doing $25 an hour for the number of staff you need, max capacity, that's the number.
Yeah,
So.
25 an hour and then
Plus.
21%.
Yeah.
And then the considerations that were still on here are things that we're still looking into, like, I don't know, cost of keeping the building open, like, that's something that has to come from the school district
Yeah.
building, oh, really?
Yeah.
Not utilities and stuff?
Utilities would be around.
Oh, that's great, okay, building maintenance schedule, we don't know, like, we have to get that from the district. Right, and then there are costs for it that have to shift, like that, we don't know, and I know that their admin has to do some stuff, so I don't know if them packing that into a couple of hours.
What, range of hours is like 7 to 7? What,
So, right, and
because
this
that usually impacts your budget
is
tremendously.
the other factor too, right, is we're putting out a survey, to kind of see interest in enrollment and what is most helpful. Because we have several scheduling options where we could cover it from, end of May, or so roughly beginning of June to August, minus 2 weeks at those front and back for maintenance schedules.
Which is traditionally, like a lot of our sites, we do that.
And then there's gonna be able to see, like, the currently school ends at 3, how many parents wanna stay till 5? Can staff stay till 5? Can we have something on Friday? And all of this is to say, it's probably easiest just to move forward where we're currently at, which is Monday through Friday, 8 to 3. But again, the more students we add, the more enrollment numbers and tuition is the word I'm looking for. So I'm sorry,
No, you're okay, this was a tricky one.
Yeah.
And I'm helping with that. You're probably looking at about 25,000 in base labor operations costs for the summer. Food would potentially be funded through FF. We are not in an FF, so amendment FF, if you guys remember, was on the ballot in 2022, which was free meals for all students. We're not slated for summer FF funding at the moment, but that would have to be looked at, or possibly partnerships with Wilson and Fishes. But your base labor is gonna be in the neighborhood of 25,000.
so the number that I was reckoning in my head was about 30,000 for
Yeah.
all that added.
And then if you add in, so we're probably, I would say more than 35 to 40,000.
And again, this is not right now asking for funding, it's not saying that staff needs to look for 30,000, this is like chipping together, seeing what we could.
I did that on a 6-week estimate.
Shift together. And there's also options for it to be small mini camps, like what the rec center has, so not doing the full June, July. Trying to do smaller things, so these are all the different documents that I have compiled, and I didn't wanna like inundate you with all of it, but I will definitely send it out to the board of selectmen if you want everything that I have. It's just hard to pin down what it's gonna be, since we're still, it sounds like today was the first day we got the definite on the licensing. So
I would like to see a proposal from you, and we can be moving in the direction, with what we need to be putting together, as you're putting together a proposal and getting all the approvals and, information from the district for that program. And then, and I realize we've got a tight timeline, but that will help us keep our timeline going too,
Yeah.
So, we can work together on different paths towards that, but this is great information, but, and then, you're gonna offset it with tuition too. So even if you're throwing out a $30,000 number, that's not, you're gonna offset that by X amount of dollars, so $30,000 when we're only looking at maybe double that right now that's sitting in that fund and that fund is supposed to cover so many things, it sounds like gas, but you're gonna be able to reduce your numbers, and so we need that, we need your proposal, and you need to put that time into your proposal, that isn't something, I don't believe that our staff is going to put a proposal together for your childcare program.
Right, well, so, and I'm sorry, it's not for staff to put this together. It's just to say, like, can we have this conversation too with all of these moving pieces? And then pull in different Georgetown staff members as kind of needed, I mean, or just have you all included in the conversation as it develops, so you're just on top of all the information as it rolls in, because again, this is a very short timeline. I am just a parent that's very aggressive, like I don't have any authority around any of these entities, you know, so trying to like pull all of this together is rather difficult, but I mean, we can still get it done, but I just wanna make sure that sharing this information and having the conversation is very open and transparent.
I mean, we support childcare. We want to be able to support childcare, but we're not going to invent childcare. Some, you know, the proposal has to come to us, whether it was you, whether it was a, you know, I don't know, I don't remember the daycare names anymore of all the different organizations that run them, but you know, whatever, you know, Little Franny's daycare, you know, kind of thing. They've got to come and ask us for a specific amount, and then it needs to fit within the parameters of how we feel that these funds, you know, can come up with.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and maybe, projections on what the county might do, or Henderson, or whatever, and it's just basically putting together a budget.
Yeah, yeah. So what is, I mean, I get the ideal timeline was like before you did the budget last year, but since we're looking at this now, there's obviously urgency around this, but what kind of timeline, can the board give me to come back with a better budget? Please don't say at the next meeting.
I think your timeline is more pressing right now than ours, and so, yeah, I think the next meeting, you need to be keeping us up to date, and then that kind of holds us to, are we moving, you know, forward with our, you know, with what we see as the big picture too.
Yeah, so just updates as they happen, each meeting, I can do that.
Can you have a proposal next meeting? I think that's really the.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Sorry.
I mean, it would be, right?
Well, you're right, for, I think just coming back into the Georgetown logistics, because we did, a lot of this was held up by checking on the licensing. What I would is, we need to know what Dayton wants to charge for tuition. That's important.
Yeah.
And if it's, so right now, the current tuition for a full-time, student is $690 a month. Right? Is that what you're- Seven.
Yeah.
700 is one, and that will not cover this program, because because that is partially supplemented by GCS's PPR. So you guys need to isolate if you're gonna be like 1,000, or what if you do it by weekly, if you break it down by a week. The labor number I gave you was on the current 40 schedule. And over 6 weeks.
And then is that 40 hours a week or just 40?
I did the labor by what they were.
Okay.
So it's not, so that was just my rough calculation. So I think if you can get to you need to figure out your income in and income out, and then we can.
Yeah, and so then I can come back, well, especially too, since now spring break's over, and I can work with the accountant a little more to find those more like refined points. So yes, I can come back at the next one with a better budget and a proposal. I did want to get in front of you sooner rather than later, though, just to get this on the radar. I didn't need to waste your time of not having a budget, but I feel like.
No, yeah, because you're helping us with, you know, some guidance from what you're looking at. That gives us a starting point when we start the conversations within our board to see how, you know, the town can look at some of these programs, and, you know, the early, you know, the summer care brings up something more, you know, a different piece of it type thing, so. But yeah, I just think that you know, and what other funding sources you may have, so.
That's another factor, which is also very tricky for you.
Right, it's because we still get to go to the board of commissioners, they still, you know, haven't heard.
Well, and they're gonna be asking the same things. So, you know, bottom line, what are you asking for?
Yeah.
And so the sooner you can get those solidified, and even if it is several different scenarios.
Right.
You know, here's what we project for a 6-week program, here's what we project for a full 2 months.
And then see which of those is managed.
And, you know, obviously, we're trying to fill the highest need, so, yeah, you know, the full 2 months would be the ideal, and if that's not realistic, then pull it back to 6 weeks or, whatever is an attainable.
Okay, start big and we can like go smaller from there.
I would even address how it's going to help the Georgetown population. And
100%.
all the different, fingers that may come into place, because that was one of the reasons why we wanted this funding, because we wanted to be able to support the community of Georgetown. And that's not to say that, someone may be working here but doesn't live here, but that's obviously still supporting Georgetown. And so if there is any kind of, priority list as to how you see kids coming into the program, if we're helping fund that, we need to know that, and that's gonna put it up on, on our priority list, because if we're helping 99% of Georgetown residents as opposed to Summit who's traveling down the hill, I'm just.
Yeah.
I would also, this program in any capacity, if it's the summer, if it's the 12-month program next year, the entire school district is in a very serious declining enrollment situation. We are not exempt from that. And all of our funding comes from PPR, which we drew into reserves this year, which is why we cannot help this program, because we missed our enrollment by 13. And that was a huge hit to, it was $180,000 that we missed our budget by, which has not happened to us in 5 years. When people get into a community and a school community and they get established, then they are likely to retain in that community. And, the retention of the school existing for the sake of the entire town is really important. We're projecting 70 kids next year, which is the lowest enrollment we've seen since I've been around.
Well, my question too is how has the families been affected by going from 5 days to 4 days? So both the husband and wife work 5 days a week, now they have a kid that's at home, which kind of goes to your point too, with trying to do a summer program for 5 days. Your families, was that?
I only projected 4.
But that's where I was going with that, like, is it necessary to notify if it's to help out families with their kids during a summer program? When we've already been doing 4 days, does that make sense? I don't know.
If you look at the data that this is available, the district and our level from the district accountability survey and the school accountability survey, because we do our own. The 40-week, by and large, has been pretty widely accepted. And the compass day that was out there is honestly not utilized. It's really underutilized. And subsequently, the rec centers Friday, the only time those dates are like really popular is if they're going to like Splash or Sky Zone or something. If it's like they're hiking Lair of the Bear, everyone's like, nope, I'm good. So I think that most of our families have adapted, and so I mean, it is an inconvenience as a parent. I mean, I hated it at first, and now I actually kind of like it. But yeah.
In Brighton, one of our clubs, we have a large club there that gets like a little over 200 kids a day, and they've been on a 4-day week for quite a while. They have one half to like maybe 40% on Mondays when the school is out of utilizing that center.
But that's consistent.
Yes,
Yeah,
and that's
okay.
been that way pre-COVID.
Well, I think long term with this, I think it's necessary us moving here. It was tough for us because we had a 2-year-old and there was nothing for daycare. Like nothing, like not anywhere. Like it wasn't like how much it's gonna cost, it didn't exist.
Right.
And so that was so borderline with us staying here early on, just happened to work out with us.
Yeah.
But with families, it doesn't. If it doesn't, then if we can't snag those kids, then we're losing them.
I was shaking martinis with Connor and a baby York. First open.
And I also too, like, our circumstances that we were able to move up here because we're remote workers now, like, there's so much more of a shift back to non-urban areas because of remote work, and, we moved up here knowing there was no childcare, but naively thinking that nanny share would be an option, and there's also not that either, so it's not to say that there's just not daycare, it's that there's not anything.
Yeah,
right.
We are considered a desert by the state statistics.
So, thank you then, I will, actually, do we put myself on the discussion for next one too, or is it just like a?
If you're ready to bring it to us, I mean, it's entirely up to you.
Okay.
If you're not ready, then
All right.
You'll know if you have enough
Yeah.
updates to present.
Well, excellent. Yeah, we'll work on getting.
yeah, work with Jen.
Okay.
Great. To be on the agenda.
Well, thank you everyone for your
Thank you.
time. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Thank
I
you
won't
for the
fit
day.
for the whole meeting.
You're good.
Because you have childcare issues?
Okay, well, thanks, everybody.
Thank
You did a very good job.
Yeah, awesome.
Very good.
You have a copy for that.
I do, cool. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, next we have the ARPA funds. Rick has a lot of information for us. Rick, may I say something quick?
Go ahead.
Because after thinking, I got the two machines mixed up. So maybe we should not have voted on the repair of the motor grader because that is coming up in discussion now, and it was the backhoe that is covered under their existing budget. So I just want to put that out there.
We can
Well,
correct
it's
it.
still, it's still a repair that needs, I mean, we didn't vote saying this is the fund that is coming out of. We're working on that piece, so,
We still have to fix
Well,
it.
exactly, but, okay, I see where you're going with that, but if it isn't agreed upon, then
We're still-
there's not funding.
no matter where it comes from, the
Okay.
grader has to
It's
be
gotta be
fixed.
fixed.
Okay, so.
That's exactly. Okay.
Figure it out.
If we don't have it, then it's probably- So the board-
Okay, so, to discuss this topic today, I kind of wanna, before you get into it, just, everyone just pay attention to me, because I know you wanna dive into the material. I know, I was like, should I give it to you? I should have. But, I gotta just talk for a little bit before we dive into this. So, these funds are from the, let me see, what do you call this? American Recovery Plan Act and.
Rescue plan.
Rescue Plan, okay, yeah. American Rescue or Recovery.
Yeah.
Well, these funds were originally given from the federal government to be pushed down into the states to help recover from COVID. And so these funds were designed for very specific things. And it was for, helping keep employees so that your business doesn't go out. Then there were loans that would be forgivable if you continue to have your employees. Then it morphed into all kind of different things. It morphed into, because it was so restrictive, a lot of municipalities were having trouble spending the money. So they began to open it up for different things. So then it turns into, well, we want you to recover and help with your economic development to encourage people to come. So then they started using allowing the funds to be used for infrastructure, water lines and water main lines and sewer lines and drainage problems. And so it began to kind of morph and change. And so it has gone through, I can't tell you how many revisions, because every time when we have discussions with other administrators, they're just like, I don't know what I can do yet, because every time it changes, it's like, it says we can do it, now it says you can't do it. And so this is the final rule of how the fund should be spent. I got in touch with, many municipalities, we've been discussing this, they're kind of like, what do you think we can do? What kind of restrictions are there? And so, we got in touch with DOLA, Todd Leopold, which is our representative for us to discuss this. And he told me the last time I saw him was, no, all that's changed. And I was like, oh, okay, again, it's changed. And he said, no, they made a final rule. And if you guys have less than $1 million, then there's kind of like unrestricted. You can do whatever you want with these funds. And so we're in the area right now that I've sent it to Jerry. Jerry is gonna make sure legally that we're have really, you know, unrestricted access to these funds. And so I'm going, you know, through the motion of, okay, this is true, that I want to get prepared for this, of how we can really look at these funds and how we can appropriate them. Now, Jerry may come back next meeting and say, okay, those terms really don't mean this. This is what this means, based on, you know, his best legal perceptions and so forth. But at this point, Joel has encouraged us to do whatever we want with this, okay? And so I'm excited about that. And so now, when you look at your list, the first one is look at the white list, the all white one. And it's got 8 opportunities on here.
Can you remind us how much ARPA funds we are receiving?
I would say it's around 260,000,
Okay, so, okay,
maybe a little bit more.
I think it's 267, if I remember correctly.
okay, thank you.
I keep remembering 260, so I don't go over. And so, but anyways, so talking through this, if it's unrestricted, we have been brainstorming for a while, even from our last retreat that we did, about possibilities and affordable housing initiatives and childcare initiatives and things like that. However, it's kind of coming down to what is the real need for us, for the town right now, for our staff, where we use these funds. And one of the biggest struggles that we have right now is capital equipment for our road and bridge crew. Our funds are very, very, very restricted on what we can do with equipment. It's in the, I mean, I had second guessed Mary, I don't know how many times where I'm like, let me see the ordinance. Because I want to read it to see, is there any wiggle room?
So you're talking about that special sales tax?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that initiative where we get a portion of that, and then the county gives us a portion from a different fund. And then I went through and read it, when we both did. And Mary's like very firm, we don't have any wiggle room, and I'm like, give it to me, let me look at it. And I hate to say this, but she's right.
Thank you.
She is.
Good job.
She's always right, and I hate it. But, you know, realistically, it's like, it's really hard because, and I actually called other administrators to see, is there any discretion of how we can use road improvements? But it spells it out, no, it doesn't say any capital equipment in there. So how can you improve a road without equipment? You can't. However, it's written so tightly that I feel like if we violate that and get audited, we're gonna have to pay all that back, and it's gonna hurt really hard. So then the other option is to do a 5-year capital equipment plan, which is we appropriate a little bit of money every year to build up a fund where we can do this. Well, we have been doing that. In fact, we purchased 2 excavators. And so one for the road and bridge, one for water and wastewater. So we've been doing that, been very responsible to save up, but it's a lot of money and a lot of time to do that. And I guess I want to say, I've tasked Scooter to give me a detailed list, which I was gonna give it to you, but I was like, no, I'd rather read it to you. His handwriting is pretty bad. It's like mine. But we have several, look at your equipment, out of your equipment, which is the parts that are at its end of life. Okay, so I'm gonna read to you the equipment that we need to upgrade. Our snow plows are shot. They have been shot, and we are constantly repairing them. In fact, you see in my report, it's always, they're snow plowing or they're fixing snow plows. And so part of the problem is they're so old that the motors are falling off, or they're having to be rebuilt constantly. Now, our crew does the best they can, but they're not, you know, professionals. They're good at fixing things, but I mean, how many times can you fix a broken motor? And that's part of the problem, and they're like 8,000 every single time you go and get one. So it's expensive, but anyways, on our 2017 Dodge, we have a V plow, which is a different type of plow. It's not the straight, it's the V, and it allows you to move different ways. You know, so if you want to plow this certain way, you can turn it.
And isn't that the newest one?
No.
It is the newest one.
It's 7 years old. We have another one, 2019 is 5 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's what?
The V plow's the latest thing.
Well, he's got 7 years old here, so.
Okay.
Again, this is subject to have some inconsistencies to it, but I asked him to put a list together. He says it's 7 years old. It has been, he's had this thing fixed multiple times. The motor has been removed, replaced, welded, replaced. He's done everything he can. It is working, but it's, how much longer? So again, we're at end of life, but we're trying to, keep it going as much as we can. The second one is, on the Ford, it's a 2019 Ford. This one's 5 years old, and we've replaced the motor multiple times or fixed it, had to send it to a shop and get it fixed. The frame is currently broken, but they welded it and put it back on the truck. And their welds are not professional welds, but they've been welding it back together. And what happens is, it's a hydraulic system, and once it breaks, then you can't use it anymore. So they have to go back and try to pressurize it and fix it with a weld until then it pops again. And that's what's been happening is the welds popping and then they have to go back and try to fix it. The 2002 Ford plow is 22 years old, and the plow motor falls off and is held on by tie downs.
This isn't funny, this is.
I know,
funny.
it's
This isn't
it's not funny, it's actually,
I know.
it's sad, but every one of our equipment, this one's 22 years old, and they use it frequently, and we've been making the most of it, okay? So they've been responsible to take care of it and use it. Those are the plows. Our sander is very old, and it keeps breaking. There's a gear that keeps failing. They try to keep fixing the broken gear, and it fails. So the sander's at end of life too, but they've been working on it and using it. The skidster is 17 years old, and the drive power is loose and it restricts turning on it, so they can't turn it very well. In fact, we couldn't even use it for the snow plowing at all, and that's where it's the only piece of equipment that we have that can push the snow box that we have. And that's to remove lots of snow at one time. It would have been perfect for us to turn this big snowstorm, but our equipment we couldn't even get it down the hill. And so that's the most important thing to use, and we can use it. It's what we use for the asphalt, for the millings. It's where we are using to load up for the trucks. We can't use it. It's sitting there broken.
And you said that one was how old?
17 years old. And then we have a grader, which we mentioned today. The grader is 33 years old. And at this point, it is worthless because the hoses need to be fixed. It is actually a great piece of equipment other than the hoses that need to be fixed. Once we fix the hoses, it's actually worth $150,000. So right now, it's probably worth about $15,000.
So our 24,000 investment in what we passed tonight is going to bring that back to life and
Correct.
increase its value.
Correct.
Okay.
It actually becomes a very
Okay.
useful tool for us. It's the only grader we
Okay,
have.
one for George.
I know. Okay, so if you go to your blue sheet now, or the sheet with the blue marks on it, I kind of gave a summary of the types of quotes that I got for the replacement of these equipment that I just mentioned to you. So, the skid steer is the first one. I got 5 quotes, and they range from 50,000 to 85,000. Depends on the size and the year and the amount of hours used that's on it. I highlighted blue because I think that's the best bang for your buck. There's two main kinds of skid steers that municipalities use, and you have a CAT. We're using CAT. It makes it more convenient because if we have to have a technician, they can do all of our equipment instead of hiring multiple different kinds of technicians. All of our equipment is right now is CAT, so we want to stay with that. But you have a 262 and a 272. Those are your two different types of skid steers. The 262, it would be completely sufficient for what we need. And so the 272 is a bonus. It's a little bit bigger. it's a little bit stronger, and the bucket bucket is a little bit bigger than, so you have a 73-inch bucket versus an 80-inch bucket. And then you have a 73 or 74 horsepower versus a 98 horsepower, so it's just a little bit stronger. However, this 262 is completely sufficient for what we need.
The
It
one
also
we
has a
have,
warranty.
It has a warranty.
the one we have now, what's the horsepower and bucket on the one that we have now that's 17 years old?
It's not even, they don't even sell this.
I understand that, but
It's
it still
probably-
has stats to it.
It's a little bit lower, I would say it's probably like a 230 model. And it's not very strong, and so that's why they're wanting to upgrade to something that would be stronger and more durable to handle the equipment and the use that they need.
Would our box go to that?
Yes, our snow box would be completely sufficient with a 262. So
Or
that,
more than 270?
or the 272. The 272 is plenty strong to do that, but so is the 262. And in fact, I even called the guy today and said, out of these two, which do you recommend? He goes, I think you guys just need a 262. Because of the way we described how we use it, they're like, the 262 is a beast, it will do everything you need.
Plus it's new, it's got a warranty, it's,
So it falls, that's why I highlighted it, because the price is really good and it's brand new with no hours and it's a 2-year warranty, so if anything happens, it's covered. So the dark blue is the second recommendation, because the price is actually a little bit less, but it's used. And it has, well, it's not very used, it only has 619 hours on it, so that's a very good machine, however, it does have a warranty.
right, we could eat up that $3,000 difference in repairs for
Sure.
nothing flat,
We
yeah.
just don't know, so that's why I recommend the top one. The second one is the motor grader, I put this on here, and that's 24,000, so. Then if you look at the sander, we discussed the sanders. There's two that are recommended for municipal use, the Snowway sander and the Western. The Western Tornado one is the one that most municipalities use. However, the Snowway is exactly what Silver Plume uses, and it is way, way, way better than what we currently have. And so it is commercial use, so it's not a cheap one, it's actually very good, and it's almost half the cost. So that's why we recommend to do that one, for being good stewards of that one. It's brand new. Similar size of what it spreads and therefore, so I recommend the Snowway. And then as far as the plows, these are the plow quotes we got. The Snowways were still cheaper than the Western. The Snowways are very good for both Ford and the Dodge. So I think those are sufficient. And if you add all these together, it's $120,370.57. That's for all the equipment to put us in a position of strength. To then now for the next 10 years, we'll have really adequate equipment for our snow and for skid steer for other multiple uses that we need. So I'm saying, I think we should strongly consider this from the ARPA funds.
How flexible are those plows when the actual vehicle that they're attached to goes belly up? And then we end up fitting it onto another one. I mean, are they pretty,
I think we should be eventually looking at larger trucks to push the plows.
so would these plows fit on if we, down the line, if we're upgrading our truck or upsizing our truck, will this plow still fit on
That would
that
be a
truck?
question for.
Yeah, I have to talk to
Snow, what-
Because we don't wanna limit ourselves.
right. Yeah, no, you're exactly right.
Well,
The trucks just aren't big enough for pushing snow.
No,
Well,
but-
especially the weight, and yeah.
If you have a problem, if the plows are getting tore up, it's destroying the trucks. I mean, I've been around that stuff for too long too, and nobody in their right mind puts a plow on their truck, they're gonna make money, it just destroys the truck. So we have to look at that at a cost too. We should look at all of it, like this is one number that takes care of the plows, but then you're gonna have the trucks, it's always something, this doesn't get us 10 years down the road, it does, it doesn't get the deal.
I think this, in my mind, gets us a couple of years down the road, which was probably good. I mean, the prices for the plows are what I'd see for prices for plows, but I would go ahead and get the trucks going with plows that are functioning. And then really look at a new plow truck and a new blade, something heavy with a rubber bottom.
But can we find out at least if the plows can go on something, you know, what's the next size up?
So I'm looking at the specs, and it talks a lot about the flexibility. I'm trying to get to your specific.
I mean, I'd like to think that, we trade in the truck or whatever, start fresh, but at least the plow is transferable to the new truck, the bigger
I
truck,
think these are lighter duty plows. For pickup trucks.
because we have just
When you say
light
that,
dustings of snow.
Yeah, for what it's using now, yeah.
like,
But I mean, do we wanna look at stuff, I mean, we're construction, so like you buy the tool for the job,
right,
and so I mean, I think what we use now would be more.
homeowner,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Without putting.
For a whole community, this is ridiculous if we're spending $20,000 on what I should have on my personal truck for my driveway.
Well, no, not that, but like in the sense of, I mean, look at the plows, look at what goes into it. So but you would, you go buy a snow shovel, right? You're not
Have
gonna
you seen my
hire.
driveway?
Not true, you're not gonna hire a landscaping company to have a plow in their truck and do your driveway. Most people don't, you do, it like Amanda does for her parking lot. For commercial, when we're looking at a town, I mean, I look at this as a bigger picture, this goes back, when we decided to close the highway and have people here, I made a comment, can we keep everything plowed? So this is the double-edged sword, it's, okay, we invite people in, let's keep our streets clean, but we can't because all our equipment's broke. We need to figure out what we want for the future of people coming here and can we keep up with the roads? And clearly we're not if the equipment's breaking all the time. What good is it if we have all our parking lots full of people because the highway's closed? But we can't plow, our equipment's broke. To me, it is all budget, like, I look at these numbers and I'm thinking, gosh, like, were we doing the right thing by inviting people in? If we couldn't keep up with keeping the roads clean, hey, cool, the highway's open, you can't get to
But are
it.
these industrial enough plows?
So
That's my question.
there's,
Yeah.
there is specs on the Snowway website that I can put in. With the model of the vehicle. So what are the, like, I'm on the Dodge, what is it? A Ram what?
it's a 1500.
1500? Is it the old or the new body style?
It's
I don't know, I
19.
can give you the quotes with the model numbers on here. So,
That'd be great.
so then you can actually.
I think what you wanna do is, you wanna look at, what do we need to do for the next year or two first? Because a plow truck is like a major expense, but we're gonna need at least one plow truck and one lighter truck to clear out the areas that are harder to get to.
Smaller.
Yes.
But you put the big plow truck, taking the highway and really taking a beating. They've got rubber bottoms on these plows.
Yes.
They just float on the ground, so that it's not taking the abuse, it takes the abuse, but it's taking less.
It's better in long-term investment.
Yeah.
But I mean, not saying too, I mean, that, obviously we're not gonna see that type trucks through our local roads.
They're too big.
Yeah, exactly. You need the size for the job. But that comes with a cost too.
I think we can,
But we're running a town here. Yeah, they're not plowing Mary's driveway with Mary's truck.
Right.
I want an industrial plow that's
Yes.
gonna handle our roads for a long term. And if it's only one plow, because we're trying, maybe we should be designating that money to a bigger truck for next year. Or combined with funds that were, I would rather look at that and,
well, I think that probably what you're gonna find out is that the 350 or the 1-ton version of a truck with a small cab and a short bed is gonna be a lot more effective with one of these type Snowway plows for getting in and out of cars, and then a big truck.
Yeah, and that is a good investment.
Yeah, the big truck will last. The CDOT's got trucks that are going 22 years, day in and day out.
What's the time frame on the use of the bus?
That was my question, when does it have to be spent up?
Do you have any idea?
I believe it needs to be at least committed by, it's either December 31st, or maybe it's even July, maybe the commitment is
I think it's
December.
It's the end, hand me your lead.
Thank you. Then it's December, I think December 31st.
Yes.
But it doesn't necessarily, like, you could order a truck
and not have it here by
Yeah.
December 31st.
And
But
that's,
as long as it's ordered before then,
Yes.
you're okay.
and that's my other question is, you got quotes on these, what's the lag time after you make a commitment to purchase it, that you actually have it
The,
here?
the actual spending of it, so the commitment has to be by the end of this year. And then the actual spending of the money has to be by the end of 2026. Okay, in order to use. Where is she?
What are these plows in stock? And so if we were to order it today, would we get it tomorrow?
All of the equipment is in stock and is, not like, the skidsters, there'll be others that come in, however, these are available right now.
Right now?
Yeah, the ones that I gave you, and the snowplows are all in stock.
If we were in a position, because we have the funds and and there's a little bit of a time frame. I mean, we could commit to some of this pretty easily. And then maybe we do a little more due diligence on
Adjust.
yeah, I mean, like the skid steer seems really straightforward.
Yeah.
The
Motor grader for sure.
motor grader obviously needed, but I mean, if we wanted to take a little more time on the plows situation, and I agree, I think if there is revenue that we have to spend to improve the infrastructure, then, making a rash decision and putting something on a truck that's not gonna last, because the truck is gonna blow up in a couple of years.
Yeah.
But you don't want the cost on that, like, so what I wanna see is, like, here we're trying to fix the plow, but then we fix the plows and now it comes back, like, oh, now we gotta fix the trucks. Which is exactly what you're saying, Mary, let's try to get this done right, so we have longevity, and that way it's actually a use, we're not going, well, we can't do half the roads today because the plow's down, or because of this, or because of that.
Well, I
So
think
some of the-
$20,000 is a lot to just do for a little bit of time.
Exactly.
Because 20,000 could be a good chunk of change down on a bigger truck,
Yes.
and so.
Well, a bigger truck is gonna cost you $100,000. And a much bigger truck is gonna be quite a bit more than that,
But that's
but it's gonna
the
last.
business that we're in though,
Yeah, no, yeah.
so.
Key business for Georgetown in the winter, we have to get our roads plowed, it's
Right.
part of the cost, we know, it's buy the tool from the trade, if you don't have the tool, you don't get the job done, that is more costly than spending the money up front.
Yeah, a broken tool doesn't get any money.
Yeah, better.
And buying two small ones when you actually need something that's
You're just
big,
gonna break it and tear it up.
they're not gonna last.
Right.
Well, a bird in the hand is worth two in the buck.
I just run the better, understandable for you.
So what happens this next month if we get a decent snowstorm?
How many shovels do you have at your house?
About four.
Double my feet, but only.
We had, so I ran several courses for the Army. I retired about 5 years ago. I ran what's called the Advanced Law Enforcement Training Division. And one of the courses that we had was called Anti-Terrorism Evasive Driving. And I had a 7-mile track, and I was all high-performance vehicles, 4x4s and whatnot. And we were in the middle of Missouri. We dealt with snowstorms and ice storms routinely. We did a lot of snow removal. We were last priority because we were considered a functional course where you have basic and advanced individual training was all prioritized. One of the things that we did that, because, we didn't have an unlimited budget, is we used DRMO vehicles. So the Defense Resource Management Office has vehicles for pennies on the dollar that are way more robust than you can even imagine. And we had 2 Humvees that had snowplows on the front of them. And we could take care of a driving track that fast. Now, we're not dealing with dogs and parked cars and, all those types of things, but just something that you might want to consider, because these vehicles are low mileage. They're usually about 5,000 miles. They might be 10 years old, but they are built to spec. And one of the advantages I had is I had 4 mechanics that knew how to deal with the GMC vehicles. The other thing we used were C's. So these are Mercedes vehicles that front end loaders that you can use for plowing and they have multiple tools that are attached to them. Again, pennies on a dollar. I have, interest in Unimogs, and that's basically what it is, if you know what a Unimog is. And I see Cs for sale all the time for 25K that have 5,000 miles on them. And a lot of the accoutrements already on them, so it might be something to consider and invest in. I don't even know if that money can be used for it, because now you're tying, federal funds with federal equipment, but something to think about.
Something for us to research. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think we, should look at what's out there on, resale markets, federal,
And what are the rules?
but if this money can't be used for that, that means those same dollars we could pull out of our regular budget because this is offsetting somewhere else, type thing. So, we can still make that work if it's a good vehicle, if it's, what we're looking for.
Right.
I could just see our guys driving around in Humvees, they'd be like. We might get Kevin off his tractor.
Guys, you can
Paying them.
Can you imagine Kevin in a Humvee?
Married to Shane like a train, got those and then use those as our police vehicles.
That's right, that's right, instead of the ones from
I
Topeka.
do police vehicles because I don't think they're tough enough.
No.
All right, so now I want to move to the second item, which is, again, these are possibilities for ARP funds.
Okay.
So the second one is Parks and Rec equipment. So I asked Kevin, everyone sees Kevin in his little John Deere tractor. And Kevin loves that tractor. But I asked him, said, Kevin does a great job of going to these wholesale places and, I forgot what they call it, when it's on auctions and all this kind of things. And then he finds attachments for his tractor, or he finds equipment that is, a fraction of the cost. So
That's exactly, yeah.
he does that, So I asked him, I said, here's your wish list. If you need something, let us know, let the board know what kind of equipment you need. He's fine with his tractor, he's kept it in great condition, he upgrades it as time needs. But he said that two pieces of equipment could really help him. These don't necessarily, and I put for the green tractor earlier, but actually, I think one is only for the green tractor, the other one is not. And so I have a picture of what he sent me, and it's not attachments. It looks like a lawnmower, but it's actually a seeder, okay? But this is for seeding and aerating our fields, our parks, and this would save him a ton of time. And so the current aerator that he has is very, very small, and there's an upgraded version for 2,500 that can be on the back of the tractor that could save him a significant amount of time. And so it's 2,500. And then the seeder it looks like a lawnmower, but it does seed somehow to help this process. I'm not a Parks and Rec person, so I can't tell you what it does, but Kevin said this piece of equipment is $7,000. It's commercial grade. It's for doing big projects like what you would need. Again, this is not a need, this is a want. He is able to do the things that he has, but this could be something that's significantly upgraded to help him.
I think we should maintain our parks, and they need extra attention. However, we have City Park, we have the dog park. Where else do we have grass and aerating?
Strauss will have grass.
Oh, okay, but when we're talking major, we're not talking even a football field size, yeah.
Is there anything you don't want to leave at these things?
Well,
I see
at
the
some
trail,
point,
yeah.
there will be that lagoon trail that gets transferred over to us, that, increases the workload.
But that's not aerating and
Mowing.
seeding, that's a trail. Yeah.
Well, it's, I don't know what the transfer will encompass. There's some landscaping on either side of it. I don't remember
it hasn't actually happened, so, but it is down the road.
I know, but we're also looking at xeriscaping down there also. We're
Yes.
not trying to have a light,
True.
Midwest lawn here,
Right.
so.
It won't hold up anyways.
Right.
No, so I'm not saying it to be
No.
scratching these off, but I just want
Well,
us,
that's why I put once.
we don't have
Because it's
parks, we don't have green light.
Yeah. Okay, so just null that, think through that. The third one, this one is a need, this one is a mandate. The state has mandated, and Jerry's also been working to try to help us. This is, the state passed a law a year or so ago and said that every municipality has got to upgrade their websites in order to be more accessible for those who have disabilities. And Jerry, I don't know if you want to make a comment, I saw your email earlier that you had a little bit of information that they're working through CML and so forth.
In our newsletter too, every day.
It's true, the CML is following a bill that is mostly the school districts have been pushing it. Because this deadline, July deadline's coming up on them too. And there's a lot of expense and difficulty really in making all of your web-based facilities. You can hear me okay?
I'm turning up the volume.
All right.
Go ahead.
There's a lot of difficulty in making all of your web-based systems disability accessible. And one of my other clients, a large client, has had a team of people working on it for quite some time and making good progress. But the point I'm obviously making is for a small community, it's the same requirement, but it's a much heavier lift for staff. And having said that, the legislature is considering a bill to amend that requirement that kicks in July to say, okay, the deadline stays the same, but there's no penalty for violation for another year. And okay, that makes me feel like 52% better, right? 52%'s better than nothing. But that said, I think I'm glad the school districts are pushing it. They've got good lobbying support at the legislature, and they have fairly good stroke with the majority at the legislature. So I think it'll probably pass. I would have rather they push the whole deadline back, so you're not sort of out of compliance but no enforcement. It's kind of the deal that's being talked about. It's better than nothing. But meanwhile, having said that, I've got a meeting set up in two ways. One, attorney's listserv, but more importantly, a meeting set up with one of the staffers of this large city that has headed up their effort. And I'd like to see what models we can use. And honestly, we might want to kick in some of the ARPA funds for that effort, because I think the bottom line, and I'll shut up, but the bottom line I think is our town staff is going to need some outside support that are, technical support that's that we can hire to help achieve this mandate. And the mandate's not going to go away. I'm sure of that. So it's really just a matter of the timing and what kind of staff we'll need to hire on or consultants we'll need to hire on to help achieve this.
Does this $50,000 give us any more enhancements to our website, or is it just providing the accessibility?
We don't know. Because right now we are in the process. We also sent a listserv information, request to, has anyone started the process? Can you send us your RFP so that we understand exactly what needs to be done that you're asking a consultant to do? And then for those who have chosen consultants, could you suggest those to us so that we can reach out to them? Because they would know what to do. They know the mandates. And so we're asking for what is it costing? What is it costing for your system to be upgraded? So we have no idea. And so I put 50,000 as just a placeholder.
But we did receive a grant opportunity today regarding that. And it opens up tomorrow, so.
Is there a dollar?
I don't know.
Cash
how
or
much it is.
anything on it?
We just got it today, and the application we can get tomorrow.
And so once we do get, we spend these funds, get a consultant, get it upgraded, then for next year's budget, we're gonna have to, because you have to maintain those things. So we're gonna, that'll have to be part of our annual budget,
Yeah, and that's part of,
maintaining that, correct?
that's why we wanna know what we need to be involved in. Like when he said staff help, because we're like, yeah, we can upgrade our system, but then what's that, like you're saying,
Yeah.
is there, like one of the consultants said their system was gonna be $4,500 annual that you have to pay a consultant to do these things. And, that's really hard on a little town like us to put $4,500 annual to. However, we don't know that because we need them to quote us and let us know what it's gonna cost for our system. So we're kind of behind the 8 ball, you know, but everybody is. I've talked to so many other municipalities and they're in the same boat as we are. Everyone is scrambling right now.
So if this was school district driven,
It was
Do
not
you have any-
school district driven, I mean, it's impacting school districts. It was driven at the state level.
do you have any, just because of your involvement, with the district, do you have any information on this that,
They're also
Just
in
helpful.
kind of a
Okay.
same situation, as I think there was a lot of hesitation to see how, like, when the time frame was going to exist. We need to do ours too. Our website's also gonna have to become compliant, and so, which is, we don't have 50 grand to get that website compliant. So I think the short answer is no, I don't. I do have the text of the bill, if you guys want me to email it to you, I just pulled it up, so that helps maybe with everyone kind of comprehending it.
does it give the details of what,
I think one of the things that I'm not 100% clear on is what level of accessibility passes the litmus
And what are the
test.
minimum requirements?
Like, I mean, because there's really deep levels of accessibility, like for people, it goes beyond just someone who's hearing impaired, having access to captions if you have a video playing, or someone who's visually impaired, having access to text. It's way deeper, it's like people who have all kinds of different challenges, so I don't know what the bare minimum.
yet on the other hand, our smartphones seem to do so much of that for us and they don't cost 50 grand.
I do understand,
I mean, the technology is there, but yeah, but it's an expensive
Jenna, I'll
investment
send
that
this
we
to
need
you
to.
if you wanna send it out to them.
Okay.
It's,
Okay, so
Okay,
sure.
so maybe,
Maybe, but we have to, I think we need to do our due diligence and put aside significant monies for this.
yeah, but we just don't know how much,
But
yeah,
exactly.
okay,
So
Sure.
as long as we know, that's why I put need.
yeah.
Differentiate from one, I think it's something that is really important. Now, the rest of them are things that we've talked about and discussed. I mean, in fact, Jessica was here tonight talking about childcare incentives. And I put a placeholder of 10,000, didn't know what she was gonna ask. However, trying to be, you guys could double that if you wanted to, but I do suspect that she's gonna have other funding sources too. And when you look at her tuition, it's gonna drop down. So I put 10 grand that we can, since it's a Band-Aid, this is not something every year, but this could easily be addressed to cover that. Number 5, I have affordable housing initiatives. I put 30 grand, this would help start the multi-jurisdictional housing authority. However, we do have one set aside that we've been, diligent by waiting, and even though I know Mary sent the form that we need to talk through, which is the Workforce Tourism Enhancement Commission. That this is a commission that we think that we should move forward with of how to appropriate those funds and have subject matter experts on that committee or commission to do that. But we do have a possibility that we can put money towards that. However, we can scratch that and just use the money we have and reappropriate that money for something else. Number 6 would be, this is something that you guys tasked me last year to be thinking for this year. And this is more of an economic development initiative, but downtown business initiative programs targeting businesses. Like what kind of business do we want downtown, but we could be putting towards certain funds to target that. Brush has a program that I remember being part of there. There are other programs with other municipalities of how they target business. And I'm saying, maybe we put 10 grand in that and we help make that become incentives to attract the type of business that would complement or be what Georgetown needs. Number 7 would be a facade enhancement grant. This would be dedicated funds to help business owners take care of the facades, painting, pointing up brick, signage, windows, lighting, all those kind of things could be going towards that to help business owners who are struggling. You know, of course, we would have eligibility details of, you know, who would qualify, who would not, but it'd be something to think about.
So that would be, staff time would be processing that and all that for 10K?
Yeah,
That could be there would be some DRC involvement
Yeah, DRC.
potentially in some of that. I mean, not like paint color, but
You know, that's a lot of tape for $10,000.
that's what we had in Brent, and we used it, and it was basically minimum, or maximum you can do would be like, we can create that, but ours was like 1,500 max. And then you had to contribute 20% of that, or the funds would only go towards 20% of whatever their project was. So we had discretion of how much we released funds on, so you can make it go all at once, or you can make it go a little bit at a time.
A lot of work for
I
10,000.
know, but we don't, but the thing is, we don't have a program. And this would help us start a program to kind of be able to get some of our buildings back in good condition.
There are some like grants too for facades specifically that would, we
For
can use that
matching
as a
funds?
match. And there's also tax credit for historical preservation. Restoration.
Number 8, this is something that I kind of gave a heads up on before. Brian Bossart has come back to me saying, expect the county's coming back to ask for funds. They're struggling with funding the roundabout service. And so they're gonna be asking each municipality to contribute 20 to 25,000. Here's an opportunity. However, this is just for now, or whenever we appropriate this. We don't have a budget to keep going back to this, and so it makes me a little nervous. It's like a mandate. They're wanting us to start contributing, and then we don't have a fund to contribute consistently for this. So it's one of those, they're gonna ask us.
See, some of these funds to me seem like, they don't seem like equipment, infrastructure. They just seem like, once we start priming the pump there, then we've got to write it into our budget next year. And to me, that doesn't sound like a great use. It's not budget believing.
well, it's like a one-time, yeah, it helps us now, but not tomorrow.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And I completely agree.
Pass that on to the next board.
Well, and even with the housing initiatives, the NJHA, whatever, multi-jurisdictional housing authority, that's the county-driven project that we discussed, but not made any decisions.
Correct.
Right.
And then I added 2 more as I was thinking about it.
Of course you do.
And there's endless more. I mean, we could
Yeah.
focus on
Maybe Jerry
drainage
wants
problems,
these doors.
curbs. I mean, there's a million other things we can do, but we do have a fund that we can draw from right now. That's our road improvement fund. But the other one I thought is another project that we mentioned, which is paid parking down by the lake. We could put aside X amount of money and help get those parking lots in good condition so that we can turn it over to a company who can help us, draw fees for this, very similar to something like Idaho Springs, which their system is free for anybody in the county. It's only people from out of town that would pay to park. And so that could be funds we could be using towards buying gravel, buying posts to make that a really nice parking lot. And number 10 is RV park. We talked about that one. And what would it take for us to make those really good RV slots? And part of it would be when someone docks, of having a sewer area where they can, dump their sewage. And so about having individual stations that would then tie into our sewer line, it would cost some money for us to upgrade to do that. We could allocate some funds and it become a system where now we have another way of bringing a revenue stream into Georgetown for the RV park. Both of those can be managed by a third party who's also communicated to saying they're working on a proposal to bring to us soon of like a 50-50. They take 50%, we get 50%. We do nothing except for if we choose to make some upgrades to our facility. However, they're gonna do all the other requirements for the paid parking to get that going, including the kiosk and all that kind of stuff, so we don't have to pay for any of that stuff.
Where's this?
It's a model that's already existing in Idaho Springs with the lake. For the lake.
That's the parking, but that's not the RV part.
We got.
Right, the RV thing, that's what I was.
No, that's a good question. We're still looking at that, just for the legal side of that, since it was properties from BLM.
Right.
We had to make sure that we're not violating a condition that they gave us. So no, that's not been determined yet. These are just possibilities.
Parks and Rec actually looked at RV park potential at the lake many years ago.
You said like Shadow Mountain at one time down that way.
No, well, our effort wasn't there, but the county has looked at that,
There's a,
yeah, down at Shadow Ranch.
isn't the county or in
So
the
it's building
county
something
down by
on
the
stand.
Dumont or whatever, that's, I
My
thought that's in
understanding that
RV.
project kind of stalled out. though.
They started up, I mean, there's more
Is it-
activity,
They've got a
but
lot
it
of
is taking
plumbing.
forever, yeah.
They went bankrupt, I heard. Now they're back.
Oh, I just make so many.
Go ahead.
Well, these are the ideas that I thought through, because we need to start thinking, I mean, we can write them as priorities too and say, even if you said, I think you need to go after these, and then we need to take more time to think through more of these, so.
It sounds like we're gonna have to do a work session on some of the sales tax piece. And it seems to me that this could be part of that work session and discussion.
What a
Some of
great
these
segue.
items, right?
Well, they're they're somewhat related in that if we end up not using the lodging tax money for some of these things, the ARPA funds might be used for it. That's
Okay.
kind of the only way they intersect. They're kind of,
I'm just looking at
so,
efficient use of time.
yeah.
And since we are talking about some of it
Funds
does
and
intersect,
funds. Yeah.
it would make sense to.
Could we move on the skid steer, because we know that that's a pretty straightforward use of the funds, and it's really needed. Could we move on the skid steer and the sander?
Or the motor grader.
Well, we've already done the
Did we do
grader,
the motor grader? Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, this is
whether or
where we
not
can get the
it
funds
comes from the fund, the
Right.
funds. And so can we do it in piecemeal, or do we have to give them the whole project
Oh.
plan by December?
I don't think you have to do, this is our plan for the entire piece. I think you can take them in smaller chunks and get approval
That
for
solves the problem that needs to get
pieces.
solved.
But yeah, if, that would be a question
But-
for the DOLA representative.
So if we say the grader and the skid steer, whatever pieces we throw into this right now, and we know we're moving forward on the grader, how are we are they cutting us a check in the near future, or when do we get
already
that?
have the funds.
Oh, they've given it to us.
Yeah.
Oh, so we just have to justify
We have
to keep it.
We have.
Oh, okay.
Report to keep
Keep
it,
it
yes,
recorded.
yes.
But that's where it says, this is where it says, I'm gonna read it to you, because it's on page 30 of this
Okay.
guidelines. I went through it and I'm kind of like trying to find, okay, where's the nugget that I'm missing here? And then I tasked Jerry to also look through it just to confirm, hey, Joel is telling me this. I've read through this and I didn't see any weird language yet. However, this is what it says. If a project has a total capital expenditures of less than $1 million and the use is encumbered by the treasury as eligible, then no written justification required. So we don't have to, there's nothing, we don't have to show that we fit the criteria of what it says in here.
Right.
Then it goes on to say, and the use is beyond, or like, in the uses beyond those enumerated by the treasury as eligible, then no written justification required.
Well, that's fine for the federal government, however, I wanna make sure that there's notation in our budget this year as we roll into 2025, that, here's our, and that we've outlined all those line items and expenditures from our ARPA funds.
Yeah.
So that years down the line, we
Yeah.
know where we had this.
We don't
windfall.
forget.
Yeah, that too.
I agree with Amanda.
Yeah. So we can cancel the big sale and get a skid steer.
I don't think we can we move on the skid steer tonight though, or do we need
That's what I
to?
have, I mean, I'll put a motion right now.
Well, because
Do you
I,
have a formal quote for a skid steer?
Yes,
Looks like
yeah, it's in your blue, the formal quote,
99 cents.
Okay,
$68,857.99.
but because we didn't have that articulated as an agenda item, this was just discussion. Are we acting inappropriately?
Is it going to be soon enough if it's put on next
I mean,
meeting?
Jerry's leaning in, like he wants to tell us what to do.
Jerry,
Yeah. Well, you know, you can always amend your agenda and you can amend that during the meeting. Other than situations where it's a public hearing and people needed to know ahead of time, you know, that they were gonna either be there or not, and you can't change horses in midstream for that. But you always have the power to act to spend money during a meeting. So you'd be able to do that.
I'm completely fine by waiting next meeting. I'm just saying, there's not that kind of a rush to do this. This was to kind of show you the due diligence that we've done, but,
what's a turnaround on the skid steer?
I don't know, but they always have skid steers. So.
Or we could fish the two out at the pond hockey.
So then let's just put it on next, let's get it on next. Keep it clean. Yeah,
Yes.
And
Totally fine, there's no rush for that. And also, Jerry.
You know it's a priority.
Yeah, it is a priority, and Jerry also looking at this to make sure that we're good.
They were clean.
Yeah, that we're clean doing this, so.
Okay.
so put the checkbook away, Mary, we're not ready.
It's really.
I think Rick was ready to pull out the pen and checkbook.
I'm good.
Very good.
Okay, so, I mean, if there's any other discussion or thoughts or other opportunities that you're thinking about, I'd love to hear it.
I'm thinking we are gonna have to do a work session to discuss some of these things that Nick brought up and
we can-
some of the ARPA funds to be able to focus and plan and really do a good job of making the best use of those funds. So I don't know if that's something we need to put on an agenda for next meeting, or if that's something we can do right now.
Establish a time for the work session.
I'm fine with another work session, sure.
Yeah, I think it's easier for us to do
rather than. I mean, if the next meeting, the next regular meeting is short enough, we could tack it on. So why don't we go ahead and sort of aim with that general direction? If it ends up not being, if our agenda grows to the point where it's too much to try and do on one night, then we can do a separate. How's that sound?
Good, and we already have some of this groundwork laid already.
And possibly be earlier, like you had mentioned that before, where some people get their meeting done faster because it'd be earlier, the actual meeting. Can we do that?
They're coming in
And
extra
possibly
hour
do that
early.
to accrue to.
And it's a work session, and then if you have actionable items, you can add them to your agenda.
You do consent instead.
We go with that. Okay. Anything more on ARPA? Or? Next, Clear Creek Fire Authority updates.
Do you have an extra one of those packets? I sent them down and I never took one.
Oh. Yes, yeah. You bet. Okay.
You want me to do this?
Yeah, right before you go, I asked, Kelly that if he has anything that he wants to share with the board, to please do so. And so he put together a memo, it's basically tasking all of the jurisdictions to get together to discuss the renewal of the IGA. And,
Very few.
And, so we've been tasked by the commission, the commissioners to have meetings on the 1st and the 18th. And an agenda was submitted to us about all the topics. And then Brian Bosshard and I have been discussing the topics, and I did communicate to the county that this is one of the most important things to Georgetown, is this IGA renewal. And it's actually on the last agenda item of the meeting. There's like 10 agenda items, it's the last one. And I told Brian, I was like, it's really important for us. I think that should be bumped up to number 1, but he feels like that one's probably the most contentious topics. And so, I think that's why Kelly's saying we need to get together and talk through that. So that's the only report I have from Kelly.
Well, Lynette and I were at the fire, or the combined meeting,
Was on the 18th.
and there was definitely a push from the fire authority board to sign the IGA, and there was definite resistance from the commissioners to sign the IGA. However, walking away from that meeting, it sounded like there were only 3 or 4 items on the agenda for April 1st. So.
No, there's actually the,
10 seems a little bit,
no, it's not 10, it's not 10.
well, that's why when
Okay,
Brian
I'll
was
tell you
saying.
exactly how many there are. So,
There were 6, as far as I remember, and with the potential for others to be added, because we were kind of opening up to, does anybody else, I mean, they're kind of wanting each municipality to maybe express their concerns with the mission CIT report. So I'm not sure, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so there's 6 agenda items, and then there's a 7 to kind of throw what next steps are. But the first one is governance and taxing options legal review. Number 2, fire authority operational response to mission CIT report findings. Number 3, open discussion about the report findings. Number 4, county review of mission CIT governance recommendation. Number 5, county emergency medical service response to mission CIT report findings. 6, which is the last one on the agenda, IGA renewal. And then the number 7 would be like, what's our next steps?
Okay.
So I responded back and said, I think the governance and the taxing options should be separate. That we should look at them completely outside of governance. And then the third recommendation was bump IGA renewal as more of a top, and his response was, that was the contentious one he put at the bottom.
So governance and taxing options do kind of go together, because how you are organized under what title in state statute determines what your taxing abilities are. So you can't really separate them. If you are this, you have this ability to tax, and draw funds, create revenue. If you are under this kind of an organization, so there's Title 29, Title 30, and Title 32.
We're 31, like the library's 31, so we have
Okay.
taxing authority.
Okay, but the ones that were discussed in relation to the fire were 29, 30, and 32.
Mhm.
And so each of those has its own requirements, restrictions for how they can generate revenue. So you can't really separate them.
Well, the reason why I said that is because if the jurisdictions decide they're not interested in a change, then therefore we have to look at the funding that we can do within that.
Correct.
That's why I suggested.
Yeah,
So we tasked our lawyer to find out our taxing ability. And he'll be getting back to us real shortly.
right. And you're talking about the fire authority?
Fire.
Yes.
So that would answer, if you left the fire authority as it is,
Mhm.
what can we do?
Mhm.
So if everybody signs the IGA, then it goes 2 years, then beyond? The end of this year,
The IGA
Yeah,
is
when you
set up.
can renew it?
Well, the end is the way it's written.
The IGA expires the end of this year, there's a clause in there that if for a majority of the parties, four of the parties
Yeah.
want to request it, that the existing IGA can be extended for 2 years of 1-year periods.
See, because to me, that would make sense, to sign off on that, and then you have,
Time.
you have a year or two to adjust the governance, where you're gonna develop your funding streams.
Well, that's.
Because, and then, and not have to worry about the morale or the thing expiring like it did the last round.
Yeah.
So to me, we need to extend the IGA or whatever it needs to be done first, so then we can, deal with those other
Are the other
issues.
municipalities signaling that they will, I know where the county stands, the other municipalities though, are they?
That's what I,
Pro signing the IGA, that's what I walked away from. Idaho Springs was definitely, behind
yeah.
the IGA. Empire is, Silver Plume was,
They are.
that's,
So, so then.
That's-
so the fourth party is the ESD, which is the
The
county.
emergency services.
And in my meetings, they are too. And then, administrators and managers are all in favor of it too.
So really the only resistance is out of the county.
Correct.
Okay.
So getting that contract in place, and then looking at the funding, sure, you got.
But that's not with the county.
But as of right now, can the 4 municipalities sign off on the IGA, and is that enough
No.
for it to be accepted? Because right now, everybody's gotta sign it.
Correct.
So if the county,
We can request it, but then that,
so it can still start.
Installed.
Yeah.
Not very good, it doesn't look good.
No, but
no,
they don't seem to be too concerned about that.
And they're doing a stalling routine right now,
Yeah, they stalled.
by putting it at the end of the agenda, where folks, they don't wanna stick around.
That's why I
To
told
fight
them,
for
so
it.
you need to bump it to the first. Let's hash this out first. That's the most important thing that we need to work out. But that's not gonna
That's
happen.
just how they feel.
So how did the fire authority, the board met last week?
Yeah.
And what else besides, I mean, obviously that's the hot topic, I understand that, but any other,
Well, we just started going through the mission CIT, with Jeremy compressed, I gave you guys a copy. Of that document, you can see where we have things that have happened already that were in there that we needed to do, they're already done. And then there was things that we were gonna, we're in the process of doing. Then we're in the process, they just, mission CIT didn't hear that. And then there's things that we're gonna work on from the report. And, short term and longer term. And some of the things that we felt, didn't apply. So you can read it all in there.
I like how they did it. They put the completed recommendations first. And, that's not what we're hearing. Yeah, we're not hearing that.
yeah, but so there were some like 120, 137 recommendations or whatever that came out of the study, so they've addressed each and every one of them.
Yeah, the whole stuff.
Okay, all right, because that was one of the things.
I think working through that, the board, the fire board's working through this with our staff. They're asking us to, as a fire board, to decide if these are, warranted in their categories. And we're gonna get back in the meeting another week from now. So we're meeting twice a month.
But so your next meeting will be, because we meet again as the big group Monday, April 1st.
Yeah,
So,
I don't really see the point of that, but whatever. I mean, you're putting the horse before the cart. They don't wanna renew the contract. A lot of these things take funding. If you don't know what the funding is, you really can't act on it. If you don't know you're gonna be a fire authority, how are you supposed to move forward? So it's like, to me, it seems backwards. It seems like just get together, renew the thing, and figure out what funding sources. You're gonna do like the towns have done, have increased the funding, so we're bringing personnel to Georgetown and Idaho Springs. It's just money.
I think this is gonna be valuable information though for all the municipalities to hear, you know, I want our fire department to be able to respond to, you know, to the consultant study. I'm interested to hear what, EMS is going to respond, because, you know, they certainly will have an opinion. I have no idea where they stand on it right now, I'm certainly hoping it's favorable, but I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we have to roll the die on that. So,
So y'all need the meeting at April 1st then?
yeah, you can come too.
Yes,
Okay. 6 o'clock?
It's back at the county.
it's in the.
Yeah, they encourage everyone.
Oh, yeah.
They're gonna send out a separate invitation to you. In fact, was another email today that we received of how do we get more support from the boards? So.
Well, and we have the opportunity to quote unquote host it too. You know, even though it's at the county building, and everyone agreed for the most part that that's a better location just for all sorts of reasons.
Yes.
Okay, and not to be, you know, leaning towards the county, you know, running it, but Idaho Springs hosted it and facilitated it, and it may, you know, maybe we should all take that piece, or maybe we should offer it to Silver Plume.
Well,
Whatever.
actually, I
Are you?
offered to facilitate until an independent facilitator is located, so I'll be,
So you
doing
are,
that.
so Georgetown is kind of,
so,
okay, good.
Be there.
yeah.
And I think that's a great idea, because I've been encouraging her to do that too, because she's very balanced, and she's gonna be able to communicate, you know, not so charged environment like it's been. And it's heavily 3 commissioners versus everyone else.
I don't, if we think that it's not gonna be charged, you know, and I'm not saying this in any reference to you. There's gonna be a lot of energy in that, and, you know, so, but it needs to be out there.
Yeah, it needs
So-
to be, take the Band-Aid off.
So,
Okay,
Yes, you know, Rick and I will be at a conference for the 18th, so we'll be on Zoom for that one.
or,
Quick question.
yes,
Lynette and Rick and I talked about this previously. The county attorney, Peter Lickman, has reached out to the town attorneys with an invitation saying, okay, it's been agreed that we the lawyers should get together to discuss funding. And that meeting is set for 9 AM on Monday. And so what I'm hearing, and I'm pretty sure of, is that I need to make sure that I'm happy to attend that meeting with the lawyers to talk about funding. And as Lynette points out, there's funding dictates governance, and they're related, whether it's a Title 29, 30, 31, 32 district. But what I want the board to know, I'll be pretty clear in that meeting, I don't want our participation in the lawyers meeting to be reported then as, well, Georgetown's okay with creating a special district, you know, for funding, because that presupposes the governance question.
correct.
And I want to make sure that that cart doesn't get out in front of the horse again. I think that it may be that the county attorney has perceived that there's more agreement than there really is around governance. And okay, we got governance figured out. Let's just now put together a funding source for a different approach, and then rather than the IGA. So I'm just letting you know there will be that meeting. I'll attend it, but I'm going to be really clear that this board hasn't made any decisions around governance, and don't county attorney and others think that my participation in a meeting on, gee, what are the sources of funding legally? There's a list. I don't want that to communicate any more than it should. And I'm letting you know I'm going to be in that meeting. And if it's reported differently when you have your meeting, which is later in the day, is that true?
6 o'clock.
Yes,
Yeah. If it's reported differently, you can say, no, that's not what our town attorney told us was going to be.
And he did recognize the confidentiality that each town attorney will come in and representing the municipality, and that you will be keeping some things close to the chest and not necessarily. So, yeah, but we were behind, we want everything to be moving so that can be wrapped up in a pretty little.
My
bow.
goal for a meeting of that type would be that all the attorneys are in agreement that for this type of organization, these are the funding opportunities and others don't apply. Because it sounds like, Peter Lickman is very, convinced of what his interpretation is. We've got the Fire Authority Board's attorney who also has an opinion, and we need your opinion on both of their opinions because you're the expert.
But the county is also still pushing a sales tax. And it doesn't impact the counties as much as it's going to impact Georgetown
Right.
and Idaho Springs. And
Municipalities.
yeah, you know, where we already have a pretty hefty,
10.05.
where we have a hefty sales tax. And the county doesn't, I know they know this, but they're not gonna feel it like we would feel it, or Idaho Springs would feel it. So I think that's another funding, a revenue option that, you know, you need to be representing us for.
I'm real excited about.
Terrific.
Because
Thanks.
they think, yeah, that's.
I appreciate that. Wanted to make sure the left hand is aware of what the right hand's doing for these meetings on Monday.
You bet.
Thanks, Jared.
Yep.
Okay. Anything more that needs, anything
No,
more
that's
from the fire authority?
Enjoy your review.
Good work. Thanks, Sharon. And come.
But please, all feel free to, you're welcome to attend as well. Okay. And then moving on. The annual sales tax report that I requested that, Mary Sims do for us. And
So I asked that this be added to the agenda only because, you know, I saw the email that came from Mary at Lynette's request and kind of wanted to know the whys and what's
So,
up.
the whys were that we get it monthly and we see things kind of go up and down, but we don't have all of the splits on, you know, what the revenues came from, tracked on an annual basis. And I was just curious, we saw, a less than projected increase in sales tax, and I kind of was interested to find out where it all fell. And so to me, this was really telling that retail was actually up, but lodging and restaurants were down from the previous year. Utilities were up. But the other, which is the online, sales tax. That particular category kind of saved us during COVID because it generated over like 30% of our sales tax revenue. And then just overall that split geographically north of 10th and south of 10th. Both of those were down, one slightly more than the other, but, yeah, it was interesting to me, and I, you know, rather than, trying to remember what the splits were every month, Mary was able to pull that together pretty quickly, so, thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
I think this is consistent with the county and Idaho Springs as far as their decrease in revenue. And I apologize for not having that information to be able to provide more clearly on that. However, I asked Amanda if, Amanda keeps great anecdotal information on her business operation. And, you know, so, I mean, I don't think that it's like, oh my God, people are coming to Georgetown. I think this is an overall trend. But I also feel that I'd rather be looking at it from a revenue in March and how it's gonna impact what we may have budgeted, for the whole year. And I know we're not gonna solve that problem tonight, but just, to put some eyes on it. But also to remind us, because we always talk about lodging, this doesn't reflect over 20 some odd $1,000 in uncollected sales tax that we're missing from Airbnb. And potentially, from the information that we're aware of. And we started to work on we changed our ordinance a little bit to kind of beef up that code. But I think we can do more, with assistance. And so I just kind of want to lump all this together, but maybe Amanda, if you can throw in all of your knowledge as to trends and stuff business-wise, that might just, it'd be helpful to us, to.
For sure, so we keep, day over day data since the data business opened, so we compare, like, this day will be compared to this Tuesday of last year. We were down slightly revenues in 2023, so that trends with what you're seeing here. We're probably 2 years in a row now having a really weak spring break, which is also consistent with the, data coming out of Summit County.
Summit County,
There
yeah.
was just a big article, in the Summit Register.
Yeah, Breck was way down.
Yeah, they're way down, over there, so we're seeing definitely the trends of decrease, kind of the big spending we count on in March. But the other thing is, money isn't going as far for people, and so the cost of a rental car and a plane ticket. I was just having this conversation with another business owner earlier today, that's a hard thing, so families, I think, are making hard decisions or saving their money for summer, because the one area we have always consistently seen our revenues increase is the June to October, and we haven't missed those months. But we were down in year overall, and then we also were down, particularly in March, and April's probably gonna be a doozy. April's gonna be really rough.
So seasonally, do you think last year in the summertime though was pretty much on par with 2022? And I apologize for
No,
that.
you're good. We missed July last year, but the July of 2022, like, almost murdered all of us. So that was a monster July. Like, no one had ever experienced that. We didn't even know we could do that. And so we did not get that last year. August was the same, September was the same. June was down. June was very rainy. We're very weather driven. If it's rainy, people don't come. So the train also though opened earlier this year. This is the earliest they've ever opened. They opened on Saturday. Last year they opened April 8th. So we're gonna have new data for these next 3 weeks that we've never had before. Because they've never been doing trains this early since I've been on. Yeah.
I wonder with the lodging, if the Clear Creek Inn being closed and the Chateau Chamonix has an impact as well.
The Chamonix officially closed when, that's what I'm trying to remember.
I think they were still operating October, November, weren't they? A little bit?
I think they were in January.
Well, they opened up special too for pond hockey, so.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, they were
No,
operating
that's
most of the.
The lodging tax data, I'm still very invested in because of the role that we had on VPC, and I am so perturbed by the situation and how it was projected and what the ROI has been, so, yeah.
And these don't include that,
Yeah,
just to.
Right, but so what I would,
This
yeah.
is just the straight general sales tax that lodging.
And then that kind of even makes it sting more, because you think here we added that 2% lodging tax, and you think, oh, well, lodging at least would have kind of balanced out or whatever. But so I guess next steps for the problem that we do know that we're experiencing with Airbnb, not short-term rentals, but with Airbnb specifically, and what steps are we taking to remedy that? They owe us money for last year. a good chunk of change, and, you know,
With penalties.
we've sent out multiple letters. I mean, I've met with Mary several times over the last year, you know.
And made phone calls and put in tickets for problems and they just.
So can we follow up legally with them at least, or, you know, something a little bit more than just the treasurer from the town of Georgetown, little Georgetown, and I'm not taking away from you.
No, you're-
But
we're not the only ones they're doing this to. We know this.
But I'm more concerned about our 20 some odd grand than I am some other towns, because that means a lot to us, you know, that could be two snowplows. Well, so I'm asking, you know, can we elevate this? Can Jerry help us out? Does it need to come from, you know, a different level of force, to push for that?
Well, I can respond in a couple of ways. As you know, you just recently adopted ordinance to change the short-term rental code to make clear that the obligation to remit was on the owner, whether or not they had hired an online platform to remit for them. And I've created a letter for Mary that I'll send you, Mary, that articulates that to the short-term rental owners to say, you know, whether or not your vendor isn't remitting, or whether or not you're using a vendor, you're still on the hook for to remit. Your location is in arrears by X dollars, and you're on the hook for that, including the ability for us to revoke your short-term rental license and our ability, the town's ability, to charge you in municipal court. Please bring this account current. If you need to talk to your online provider, please do so, but you're not shielded by having hired them. And I think that's a message that the property owners need to receive, because that's what your code says. I haven't gotten much back from the Attorney General in terms of what efforts the state intends to make. And in fact, there's a bill in the legislature right now that's working its way through that the online providers, the Airbnbs of the world, are pushing to require local governments to accept kind of blanket reports as opposed to individual property by property reports for their customers in a given community. And other communities have really been pushing back on that, wanting to have individual reports from VRBO on the location at XYZ Elm Street. But instead, the providers, and they've gotten, I think, halfway through, I think they're through the House and they're pending the Senate, or the reverse, a bill that would require them to allow them to aggregate, because from their perspective, they'd much rather just send one report in to the town to say, hi, we've got like 15 locations and here's the money for all those locations. I don't know how Mary feels about that necessarily, but this illustrates how the online providers are, you know, at the legislature trying to make their lives easier. And that's obvious preemption, right, that they're trying to pull. And that bill hasn't passed yet, but it's out there.
Well, and that's been our problem with that one online provider in particular, or most of them, is they don't give us the breakdown.
Well, no, they don't even give the state Department of Revenue. Colorado Department of Revenue does not get detail. So at this point, I'd be happy to just get a bulk report and payment, and deal with the details later, because we're going off of Airbnb telling their clients, oh yes, we are collecting for you and we are paying the town of Georgetown. We have not received penny one from Airbnb.
Okay.
And,
But I see your point, some is better than none, but I think agreeing to
let them kind of slide and not keep decent records.
I would be facetious, because the Department of Revenue said, I don't know why the powers that be ever agreed to that. Because now I mean, there's really no way to audit them. Because you have no detail. And the numbers that I gave you, Mary, are based on what Airbnb is paying to the town of Georgetown at their 4.5%. What they give to the state, that the state turns over to us. So all that money, for sure, we haven't received lodging tax on. Because, but I'm at a loss at what to do, and just because other municipalities are having the same problem, I don't. Okay, so everybody.
I don't want us to stop.
I didn't say that to justify anything.
Yeah.
I'm just, pointing out that we're not.
Yes, well, yeah, and we all know that
The
they're
lone
having problems.
persecuted.
And as far as when the change went to the ordinance, I believe a letter did go out to all short-term rental.
At the renewal,
At
at the beginning of the year.
I don't know, it was before that, it was when the ordinance changes happened. So, they did get the letter. Yes. So they realized it, but here they've got a company saying, no, we're paying it for you,
And they're not.
and they're not.
So Jerry, what do you suggest we do? What should our next step be?
We can do a couple of things. We have the right to cite these owners in a municipal court. And I realize their defense in municipal court will be, I hired Airbnb and they tell me they've paid, so I'm good, right? But we don't have evidence that Airbnb has paid us for that location. So, and I don't want to hurt our owners either, but when they get a municipal court summons, that's going to get their attention, and possibly that's how they communicate back to Airbnb to say, you guys have got to cough up to the town. I'm in the middle of this and I'm in front of the municipal court judge. So that's one thing we can do. Second thing we can do, I probably want to amend the code section again to be able to make it clear that we could cite Airbnb or any online provider into municipal court. That's tougher to do. It's always hard to get a nationwide corporation to get served and be in front of municipal court, but it's what I can do for you. I can't pull a rabbit out of a hat necessarily, but if they are really the bad actor here, then I think they ought to get we ought to try to get the same pressure on them in terms of our ability to cite them for a municipal code violation. So we can do that, but I'd want to have the basis for that better articulated in our code, which right now, and properly, just focuses on our ability to enforce as against individual STR owners. So we can do that.
Okay, well,
I can draft
think
that. You can see it.
I think we need to start I think we need to start the next step, and see where that takes us. Because that revenue is important to us.
Yep.
And it's unenforceable right now.
Yeah.
Basically.
If there's board support for writing the municipal court tickets, we'll absolutely do it. But you can imagine once those tickets go out that you'll hear from property owners, and you'll have to be, ready for that.
Well,
So,
initially,
sure the board is, on board doing that.
I'm more comfortable with a warning letter first.
Do you suggest that we change?
I have one written. Sorry.
What?
I'm sorry.
Change the ordinance.
Do you suggest that we enhance our ordinance first to tie in the actual online providers and then start the municipal court proceedings? I mean, if, you know, on the violators, so that we've got the opportunity that it's the owner and or the online platform? Or do you think we should start with just the property owners?
I don't feel strongly about it. I do agree with Lynette that so far the owners really haven't been told you could find yourself in municipal court. And rather than the first time they see the first crack out of the box, they see a summons and complaint, they probably ought to get a letter. And I would at least do that. But pertinent to your question, Mary, I don't feel strongly about tuning up the ordinance, which we can do next meeting. We can have an ordinance that tunes it up and adds the online providers as potential defendants. So it's, and meanwhile, the warning letters can be going out to the owners. And then, because I would want a couple weeks to go by after those warning letters went to the owners before I would cite them. Right? Because it'd be wrong to, you get the warning letter and the next day you're gonna get a citation. So we've got the benefit of having some time anyhow. The warning letters can go out right away. I've written it and I'll show you.
So you're not, you don't think that the letters that we've already drafted and sent out advising the property owners of the change suffices as a warning letter? You want to take it, and I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that, but I just, you know, I mean, eventually we have to kind of put our money where our mouth is.
Yeah. I think it doesn't suffice. And the reason is the letter I've drafted says we have the right to do two things to you: revoke your license and cite you into municipal court. And the citation in municipal court, I think, is probably a message they haven't heard in those rather definite terms. And I think they have an entitlement to receive that message. You'll still get complaints if we do end up having to cite people, but the complaint will be, why, you know, I'm mad you cited me into court, rather than I'm upset you cited me without even telling me that could happen to me. And
how is Mary going to be able to provide the specific information for ABC property owner when we don't?
Can we
Yeah.
back up for a second?
Yeah.
We don't know who the violators are. Airbnb doesn't, okay, I'm going on our missed revenue off Colorado Department of Revenue reports. They don't break things out for Colorado Department of Revenue. We have no idea who the violators are. It all comes back to Airbnb, you're collecting this money and you're not turning it over to Georgetown. We can't, there's no way to know who the violators are in the town of Georgetown. No way.
I hate to ask this question, but if you were to start doing audits on the individual short-term rentals, would that, based on their records and what's provided to you, will you be able to start to?
Yes, if they, okay, say, just for example, they go through Airbnb partially and they go on their own partially. If they have only been reporting to me when they go on their own and they just leave Airbnb out of it, how, an audit's not even gonna catch that. I mean, if they keep their books separate.
Well, I'm sure they use a lot of platforms. I mean, if I were doing it, you know.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So to identify, I mean. Okay, I gotta watch what I say. The violator here is Airbnb. The other platforms, as far as I know, I haven't heard anything in a very long time, have made it so if they collect for their clients, they end up and pay their client back the 2% that they collect for Georgetown and the short-term rental owner then remits it to me. That works fine, but Airbnb is not doing that.
Okay.
So there's no way to identify there's no way, the violators, or, I mean, they probably don't feel they're violating because Airbnb is taking us money. So really, the only thing you are able to determine is based on a bulk report, a bulk number from Airbnb to the state for the regular sales tax. Which is all lodging tax, yeah. I mean, well, it's sales tax, it's just sales tax. But on lodging. Correct, yeah, it's sales tax on lodging. The best you could do is calculate how much additional, how much lodging tax you should be also getting. That's what I gave to Mary.
Yeah, that's
Right.
like 20-some-odd thousand.
Okay, yeah, I didn't.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing you can actually determine for sure is the amount that we should have gotten but didn't. You can't tell, in that amount, who owed what. Because they don't break it.
Except Airbnb owes it, is the way I understand it.
Yes, Airbnb owes it because they
Yeah.
collect, understood.
Okay.
Understood, but
You're right.
the individual short-term rental owners, you can't assign an amount to any of them because you have no way of knowing how much of this pie is theirs. Yes, very good. That's a tough one.
However, one would not continue to pay for a service with an online platform if they're not receiving customers through that platform,
You would think,
one would think.
yes.
So,
Okay.
So what if we ban Airbnb, the use of Airbnb?
Like the platform?
Yeah, we ban the platform, like, it's not a possibility.
well, when we talked about that before, because Airbnb happens to be the one that we know of now, and we don't want to, then all of a sudden we're faced with the same issue with some other one that comes up and starts doing it the same way. The state looks at the revenue that they're getting from short-term rentals, Airbnb, and, everybody else is this great windfall, and it is. I mean, there's a lot of money coming in for it, and so I hope that they don't fold on this.
The reason why I'm suggesting the idea is because we can go on right now and see who's using Airbnb.
I'm looking at it.
We can identify these people who are doing it, so it's kind of like, would we ban that?
There are a lot of sister companies like within.
Yeah, what's this new one, Blue Pillow? This one.
I haven't heard that one, but
Just showed up.
VRBO and HomeAway, they're all connected somehow. Like, here's the parent, the big name companies, and then there's 10 other ones underneath. So you'd have to ban Airbnb and everybody that's, yeah, thank you.
So I think that's why there's some strong feeling about where we really need to go after Airbnb as opposed to
Trying to.
you, me, and everybody else who has the. I don't have the answer for it, obviously, but I think it's worth. I don't think we can ignore it. And if it takes bringing someone in and show us your books, and how many bookings have you had through Airbnb, and how many have you had from HomeAway and Evolve and Blue Pillow
Blue
or,
Pillow is apparently affiliated with VRBO.
Oh, okay.
As a side note.
and look at it from that, that seems oversimplifying it, but,
Or you can require every individual STR owner to make report and remittance to the town. And the fact that they book through Airbnb is nice, but they have to remit directly. Now, that means a lot of staff time to establish those relations with those owners and say, you're welcome to use Airbnb to get booked, but Airbnb is going to have to collect and then remit back to you so that you can, so that I, the STR owner, can remit to the town. And
So,
that's a lot of staff effort around that, but you know, that's the only workaround I can think of, short of we set up Airbnb for some kind of enforcement, but when Mary says we're not sure who to, I'd love to cite someone into court if you tell me who to cite, but I can't.
yeah, I mean, if you would you not be kind of fired up if you were doing everything the right way? You got your life safety inspection, you did all this, and then you're trusting these guys to do this? I mean, I think them showing us their books, if we could at least get maybe like 5, just randomly, that we have good relationships with, would maybe be a starting point. To not waste time and effort, because I think they're also victims of this. They're.
Oh, totally agree. So then in our code, do we need to create the correct wording in our code that requires it? I'm trying not to step on anybody's business operations here, but you know, that we get that breakdown, that, you know, that in an audit situation, we can see that you booked 50 from Airbnb and 35 from HomeAway and blah, blah, you know, I mean, can we ask for that specific information? Because again, I can't believe that someone's gonna be paying Airbnb their service fees and their chunky service fees, if they're not getting any bookings through them. So, you know, and then that's gonna fall back on the short-term rental owner, you know. It's gonna be like, come on, you're not spending thousands of dollars to have your property listed with them, and you're not getting any bang for your buck. You obviously are booking something through Airbnb.
May I say something? I do know that we have 3 or 4 short-term rental owners that I know of that do book and have bookings through Airbnb, but they are doing the right thing. They are, Airbnb's taking the 2% from them for Georgetown, but they send me a report and pay every month. But are all of them? No.
Have they disclosed to you whether they're getting money back from Airbnb
They are
because
not.
Airbnb has collected the 2% already for them?
They confirmed that Airbnb has collected the 2%. And Airbnb does not turn the money over to them.
Okay.
They say, they tell Airbnb or the accounting people that they talk to at Airbnb, tell them that they are paying it directly to the town of Georgetown.
Okay.
Well,
Can you,
it's really a matter of what you want to require. And we can inject into the code, we will only receive remittances from the owners.
has anyone ever read the tax obligation terms of service on Airbnb?
Do you want to enlighten us?
Yeah.
Sure. Let us know what it says.
So this is their other tax obligations. Hosts listed in these areas are responsible for assessing all their tax obligations, including state and city jurisdiction. Hosts with listings in these areas should also review their agreement with Airbnb and the terms of service and familiarize yourself with their local occupancy tax provisions, which allows to collect and remit taxes on their behalf and explains how that process works. Under those provisions, hosts instruct and authorize Airbnb to collect and remit occupancy taxes on their behalf in jurisdictions where Airbnb decides to facilitate such a collection. Besides, if hosts believe applicable tax laws exempt the host from collecting the tax that Airbnb collects and remits on the host's behalf, the host has agreed by accepting a reservation that the host is waiving that exemption. The host does not want to waive an exemption, the host believes exists, the host should not accept a reservation, and Airbnb will therefore not be responsible for those taxes.
So they're putting the burden on the host.
Yeah, of course.
Hosts also have the ability to add other taxes to their listings in accordance with laws and applicable jurisdictions. If applicable, find out how to add your taxes to your listings.
Can we notify the people that use a Airbnb that Airbnb is not remitting the money to the town?
Notify all the short-term rentals.
Yeah, all short term,
Not just.
rentals, yeah,
Yeah, we've done.
that Airbnb is not,
Already did that.
yeah,
Yeah, we-
oh, it had.
Yeah, we've seen.
Yeah, so, and then
That
that
was
was
perfect.
also add an annual tax collection to your listing.
This is why it's been so frustrating,
I see.
because we have tried, we changed the ordinance to let the homeowner know that if they don't remit, you were held responsible.
So last year Airbnb has held out $23,411.72 from us. And in January, is that the other figure?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was another $2,700, $2,781.95, if anyone wants to know specifically. You know, and again, so this is gonna. I think we've gotta find a way to pursue this, and if it's, so if Airbnb is putting the burden on the owner.
I said I missed everybody. They could do a manual tax collection, and maybe that's what we amend the ordinance for. We amend the ordinance to require that you do a manual tax collection. It's pretty straightforward on listing, I mean, I can look into it more.
But what about the idea, I guess this is to Jerry, what Mary had suggested, requiring that every licensee has to show us the books? Can that be part of like a renewal process or an audit process into the ordinance?
Sure, sure, and it doesn't have to be just at renewal, or, you know, you could say, you could.
As requested?
Yeah, showing us the books that's well within the town's authority to require business licensees to show books that support the things that the licensee is obliged to do.
I believe it's already in there, Jerry.
Okay, I'm just, I keep,
Yeah, no,
I keep making suggestions, and I recognize that there's an answer why each suggestion isn't gonna work. All I can do
Fred said we only have
is
what,
making the
57?
suggestions, but what I
I
can't do is pull a rabbit out of a hat.
Right.
Exactly. I keep trying things, and you can tell me if that won't work, and I'll try the next thing. That's all I can do for you. I can do what I'm hearing, though, is that there are two things that maybe are supportable, that people aren't gonna say, no, that won't work. And the one I hear is, individual property owners, you've got to show us your book showing us who you've rented, you know, how many rentals you've made directly and through online platforms and what those amounts are. Now that just gives, hear me out, I'm almost done. That just gives you information, but that's useful. The other thing we can do is require that the individual STR owners remit directly to the town, and that remittances through, or any contract they have with Airbnb to remit, don't satisfy their obligation to remit lodging tax to us. And then we create a spreadsheet of the owners, and then you can then you know, Mary, who is your violator and who you can cite, I assume, right? True?
I'm thinking it through, hold on.
Well, we're
One of these
self-collecting,
times you're gonna
right?
say it works.
Well, yes, okay, yes.
It could exempt. It's just so, like, I'm reading it, it says, if you feel that your jurisdiction allows you to exempt from our collection, they can all exempt, and then it's on them, the onus is on them. I'm looking at, there's literally a step-by-step process of how to do it. I mean,
And let's remember that Airbnb's rules.
okay.
But so then our code would have to allow them to use our code to prove to Airbnb, if Airbnb cares, that here's my legal exemption as to
Yeah.
why you're not collecting
We'll have to give them the code.
the Georgetown lodging tax, because I have to direct pay that.
I mean, it solves the problem.
Sure.
I mean, like, cause then let them deal with not having to pay. I mean, it's their business. You know, if the VRBO is still trying to take the money out for their fees, then they can choose not to use that organization. If it doesn't, it takes it off the us.
And it looks like they can do this for, I mean, I'll dig into this a little bit more, but they can still have their remittance to the state exist without interference. It's just the local tax. So, and there's this literal step-by-step instruction of, if we don't already collect taxes, this is what you do. If we do already collect taxes, but we need to change this is what you do. Select your local laws and taxes, send us a copy of the code, add your business tax ID, and then agree to terms and safe.
So if we have 47 short-term rentals in town, right, approximately, whatever, how many remittance do you get per month anyway? If we're self-collecting, they have to pay you. So you're getting them anyway. You're getting 47 of them. This really isn't adding anything to your, I mean, initially it will, but
No, but it might add, if they're segregating their Airbnb bookings and their on their own
everybody else is,
booking
yeah.
and not paying lodging tax on the Airbnb portion because they're paying and only paying on that. So, yeah, it's still just gonna be one reporting form, but the monies should increase.
Sure.
It also says on the same page that I'm looking at that you can review the tax amounts collected by Airbnb. And then there's a drop down if you're an owner for your Airbnb tax reporting form. So hypothetically, every owner would also, so if we're trying to get back stuff. If you want, I can't do it tomorrow, but Thursday I can come in, we can go through all this.
I've seen some of that, but I would like to see what you're looking at.
I just sent you the link. I
Okay,
sent it to,
okay.
you and you and you and you. And then I sent it to everybody else.
Thanks.
Okay,
All right.
good.
Thanks.
All right, so
So, okay, so let's get off the lodging tax for a second. So Mary, at this moment, when you're looking at this information that you prepared for us, comparing this year to last year, do you feel that we are in some position that we should be aware of as far as our annual budget?
no,
Okay,
I mean, we knew that
That work session.
23 was gonna come in under
okay,
22, like that, probably October.
okay.
And I just think with the economy the way it is, you know, people aren't
Well,
spending money.
22 had also, we consistently project about a 3% increase. And 22 was quite a bit more. It was actually almost, it was like 5%, 5.5% increase over the previous year. So even though we came in less than 22 on 23, it was still, we're almost at that 3%. If you went back 2 years, it was almost 3% per year.
Right,
So I just was interested.
I know, but when we think we have money, you know, we do try to provide services and,
Absolutely.
you know, and so I just didn't want us to be in a jam. I'd rather be thinking about it now in March and April rather than,
Right,
oh my, it's November and we're tanked.
but we also, you know, there's enough delay on just regular sales tax reporting that we only have January so far, right?
Mhm.
And, you know, so we don't have enough to go on and see whether we're,
Ask me that same question in 4 months.
okay.
Okay.
And I'm still getting some lead time.
I can't wait to see what the Plant Hockey did. You know, are we gonna be able to see this?
Well, but, you know, there's a little fluctuation there. Sometimes January, you're getting delinquent tax from December, sometimes, you know.
I'm just saying, like, anecdotally, you were up in January and we're.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, that was all of our discussion items, staff items. You've got the acting marshal report in your packets.
Assistant Town Administrator update.
Hello, so you all saw the emergency action plan. We got to see that in action for the winter storm. That was exciting. We had a really productive debrief afterwards that I will be updating that emergency action plan and showing that to you updated. Oh, those are my notes, yes, but the actual plan. So you wanna, well, we'll get to that later on the agenda, right? So, I attended the county after action meeting today as well, and I think that was productive, so that will also be included. The main note I think everybody has is that we can improve communication between everybody, and that will make things better. The CML listserv also brought HB 211110 to my attention. Jen and Jerry have already been working on that. It's a bill that mandates accessibility for all government services, and in particular websites. So that's something that we are looking at. And I think, Jen, you were interested in asking Jerry some questions about it, right?
Yeah, we already talked about that, I think,
Oh,
tonight
okay.
in this meeting, yeah.
Is that when I was gone? Yeah. Okay, all right, well. Never mind. I'm working on looking at Crazy Horse and any potential violations there with section 8. Wanted to make you aware of that, make sure all of you are on board with me pursuing that. Okay, great, and then Jerry is working with me on that as well. Want to let you know that I was awarded the CML Conference Scholarship. Thank you, Lynette, for writing me that letter. And then day-to-day, just working on DRC stuff, some form updates, random projects that Rick gives me, so that's what I have going on.
All right, did you want to give, I mean, since we did mention, do you want to give any more updates just about the emergency plan and strengths, weaknesses, what we were recommended to work on? I think that'd be helpful since we just brought it up.
Okay.
And I just gave them your notes too.
Oh, okay.
Can I ask for a list of the volunteers though? And I hope that we're reaching out to these volunteers, not just, thanks for your work, but something a little bit more formal, because I'm sure that was a huge job and their efforts need to be recognized, more than just thanks for showing up, kind of thing. So, you list some of them, but then I too would like to be able to know that that person was there. So if I run into them or any of us run into them, it's just one more reinforcement to say, hey, we really appreciated it, that you did. And I guess the next time this happens, we'll see how well we improve.
Do you guys have any extras of what you're passing around? What's going on?
Yes, I do have that list, Mary, so I can absolutely give that to you.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have really great volunteers who came out and helped us. There were 18 total. We had shelters designated early and supplies nearby. For the most part, the roundabout was clear and we had a plan ahead of time, which made things a lot smoother. We had great staff participation. We had supplies on hand. There was a lot of intergovernmental coordination between like the county, fire department, and of course the different Georgetown departments. The electric sign we've been using now since the hockey tournament, and we think that's a great resource for informing people about things. The brochures were a partial success, I think more for before the storm maybe than during it, but we have some ideas about that. There was some proactive work going on, especially with plowing, that kept all of our streets clear for the most part. And so we felt like that was a strength. And then the pre-event meeting with the county was really helpful. And just a general sense of community spirits and grace for everybody involved. We did have weaknesses as well. Environmental factors, obviously the snow falling very quickly was a difficult thing to deal with, especially if we sort of planned ahead of time to park people in lots, but some lots aren't impossible to keep clear enough for those cars to exit. So that was something that the heavy snow made difficult for us. It was late at night, so some of our volunteers were not available to deploy because we didn't give them enough heads up. We sort of lacked a centralized information command structure, which is something that we are planning on getting some training from the county, like a incident command service, structure. We were scrambling a bit initially. We'd like to be ready a little bit more advanced with things like,
Sorry, Keisha, I know it's okay, I had a work/home emergency. Someone walked into something and I had to go help free them, so my apologies. All good. Sorry.
Yeah, so having volunteers ready to deploy with expectations about what we're expecting them to do is something we want to make sure we do next time, especially about what the expectations from them are about the command structure and what their roles are. The general public, we feel, could have been informed a little bit better about certain things, although there's like limitations to that. So there was some conflicting information from CDOT that we want to try and clear up. Rick is on a listserv now, so he's getting live updates for that, so that should be helpful. The brochure was difficult to distribute because it was really wet, and it's, you're kind of talking to people in the moment. It's not intuitive to hand it out to them. We brainstormed some, maybe handing out lanyards with a QR code, so you can just sort of show it to people, they can scan it, they got that brochure on their phone. We can see how that works next time. And Mary gave me a great note about not making it a winter emergency, but just like a generic emergency brochure that we can update as well. The radios were not super effective because we just don't really have the training to operate them. And so that's something that I think, did Scooter suggest that to Jeff? We talked about this morning, maybe making like volunteer info video on like how to use the radios, expectations. We haven't gone into detail about what that is, but.
I think too, just to highlight this is, it's understanding incident command first. And who needs that radios, how volunteers should be interacting, instead of having, or even like the texts that we were doing. It got to the point when we were texting, I didn't have time to look at 20 texts. And it's understanding incident command better, of like, Kasia in the future will only deal with volunteers. They will not have all of our members, or John, don't have him on that list either, or Scooter. It's just understanding that. So I think part of it is, I started going through training personally, because I haven't gone through that. But also John and Kelly and the county is gonna come in and do some training with us too. So that we understand how to set up a command system and how to be able to disseminate information and who's gonna, so all that to say, the radios will work better once we understand and who should have the radios, not everybody, kind of thing, so.
When, I'm part of the security team for National Teen Conference. It has 15 to 2,500 teenagers in a nice hotel. The, security teams use not us, the paid security or the police to use their own radio system. And then we use a GroupMe app to communicate to fill in the gaps and deal with some of the emergencies that come up with those teams. So that may be another option, is those folks that need the command and control, but you might be able to coordinate us with that app.
That might be another item that you want to put on our phone.
Well, and I was also considering the county did declare an emergency, which allows them to apply for funding. Are we under that funding umbrella possibly, where any expenses that we incurred? Or I was also thinking in terms of, the visitor center stayed open all night so that people could use the restrooms. That's probably gonna jack their water use, just an idea of tracking those kinds of, event specific
Maintenance and
expenses.
cleaning for all the facilities that were used as shelters,
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. The prep,
A chance to get it.
Yeah, I was just saying, we
Yeah.
need to, and also find out when the deadlines are, so that we make sure we
Get,
can
get
track
the
all that
request
stuff
in,
back, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, do we file under the county or do we file separately because we're in the declared count or in the,
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
I'll check with her about it.
But
And
when radios and things like that became apparent, like, we should have a system that John and I can be on, Scooter and I can also have information, or even with Kelly. A radio that we're all on, you know, the command system, and we're just not prepared. And our little radios are not designed for that. They were really for volunteer radios, not for incident command kind of thing. So that's another thing, those radios are expensive. And so those are things that we're gonna have to,
And it's always gonna snow on I-70
Yeah.
in Colorado in the winter.
Yes.
And some of the things we talked about in the county meeting today as well is Suzanne is part of, and she's gonna email me access to this, and I'll send it to you as well. Is the Emergency Operating Center, there's like a online board basically where people can post updates about what's going on. And it just keeps everyone more in the loop, but you know, you're not necessarily being overwhelmed with text messages. It's something you can just check if you want to. So, and you can also, if people aren't on that system, you can email people whatever's going on as like a PDF. I haven't looked at it, so I don't know what that looks like necessarily, but I think that would be a useful tool for finding out like what EMS is doing, what fire's doing, what sheriff's doing, like county level stuff, and then we can communicate with them about what's going on here as well. Yeah, and they also are planning on undergoing some ICS training, the incident command structure, because they also didn't really have any. And so that was something that they identified as an issue as well, so. Yeah, let's see, yeah, texts are overwhelming. We should, you know, we knew that this was gonna be a big snowstorm, like everyone felt pretty confident about it. And so, you know, just like trying to anticipate what we're sure about and what we aren't. Well, okay, Mary wasn't sure about the snow, but.
that's what I was referring to.
I ate crow.
Did you not believe the weather forecast?
I did not.
And you know, there's also talks at the county level of like, if we're not sure, we should be closing off the roads ahead of time, so hopefully that will help us a little bit if we're able to do that. Yeah, supplies, so some of the supplies of the shelters were outside, and then once it started snowing, it's like pretty hard to get all those boxes of cots inside. So we didn't end up using any of the cots, even though people stayed the night in the shelters, so we wanna avoid that next time. We didn't establish shifts, so a lot of people were really exhausted. I know like Tracy Troya was really burnt out, Pam McCoy was exhausted, Jake Cooper was really tired at the end of the night. You know, we need shifts, we need more people to take over some of these roles, and that's something we want to establish ahead of time in the future. We also would like to like feed people and make sure that they have supplies like that to keep them going. So Rich, your chili was requested specifically for feeding the volunteers in the future.
And that would have been real easy to put together, because I went over to the community center in the morning, and just the fact that they had snacks and coffee, with, you know, hot chocolate, tea was a big deal, but I'm like, man, if we had the stuff, you could just throw it together, and then you gotta feed your army.
Yeah. And we did talk about separating like food for people who are sheltering from food for volunteers. So maybe having town hall as a volunteer center, and then people who are sheltering different things, you know, but we do want to have more food. And Mark Reynolds also let me know that he's planning on having some supplies ready in the community center for the future as well. So, what else? Let's see. We need some additional supplies. Rick is putting together a proposal for that.
When we're talking about like class C or class 2 vests that we should have had. Our vests are really more for like events, not for this kind of thing, being on the traffic, having a stop sign that it says slow on one side, stop on one, having some type of flashlight that's more like a lantern that, yeah, baton, like having those that you can see, even my truck or my Jeep and having scooters, plows, none of them have strobing emergency lights on
You
this.
just pop on top.
Right, but you want something that can
Okay.
show up, that's gonna be bright, and we recognize that we should, like, I was blocked in many times trying to get around people and I couldn't. And, like, these are just things that we didn't think about, but we realized after the fact, oh, now we need to upgrade some of these.
I think the revised plan is gonna be great, and we're gonna learn from
Yes.
that, you know? I wasn't here, I'm glad I wasn't. You know, I can't say I wasn't excited to miss it, but I do, you know, I mean, all of these, even though, you know, there's lots of, you know, weaknesses and opportunities and this, you know, I think it's gonna be like, okay, so how do we execute better next time? And there's gonna be something, you know, that isn't done right again, and, you know, we fix it, we try to fix it, and there are gonna be some things that are beyond your control. And there are gonna be some things that you can only handle with X amount of people, so I think you have to think about if you've got, you know, where are those crucial people going initially? And if you get 5 more, you know, maybe you can open this up, or they can do that, and 5 more, then this happens, and otherwise you're in your car or you're stuck. Or and if you can't get there to make chili, it doesn't help. You know, if the streets aren't, you know, passable, or what do you do? Carry everything? You know, that isn't gonna
Well,
happen. That's not realistic.
What I've done in the past is I've actually made chili and frozen,
Yeah.
and then all you're doing is heating it up.
Then do you put your dogs
Because it
on
is
the
gonna
sled
snow in
and then you
Georgetown.
get your
Well,
dogs?
but you can store it in a community center freezer. You
So,
can store some of that stuff ahead of time for 6 months.
I got a question, you know, I mean, we discussed that with parking, you know, parking's not an issue, we've got the plow, but it was an issue because it keeps snowing. What happens when, you know, you look at it like this, right? Gosh, Georgetown's so awesome, they got this awesome plan in place, let's just go ahead and drive up to the mountain because they're houses. You know, so you have that, so you have more people, probably not, but you have more people coming up. But what happens if it's not just an evening? This was an evening. What happens when it's the evening, then it's the next morning, then it's the next afternoon? And then all of a sudden you have no more volunteers left because they got their own stuff to take care of.
mhm.
You know, it's like, where's the stopping point? How much did we really utilize what we have? Did we? I mean, I think we had what, 250 parking spaces? You know, did we utilize that? How well did that work? That's the numbers I would like to see, because it's not like you're holding an event for kids, you know, over a weekend at a hotel. This is something that's random, that can happen any time, any hour. You know, we talked about it in the middle of the day, I'm way more available than the evening. I'm way more available when it's not snowing and I'm just trying to keep my own driveway maintained. You know, there's so many variables to this that it's like, how far, you know, letting people go to the businesses when it's in the middle of the day is better than at nighttime, and all of a sudden all the businesses are closed.
So some things, pretty much everyone at the higher levels, like our fire department, John, Suzanne Boscia, who's the Office of Emergency Management Director, they were like, get people out of here. So as far as sheltering people, that's a very, very last resort. That's one of the things when I say we can communicate better with the community, but there's limitations. We don't want to be telling everybody that there's shelter available. We're trying to filter out who needs that shelter. And so, you know, yeah, if there's multi-day snowstorm, we'll have to scramble a bit probably. But the idea really is to get everyone back to Denver where there are resources. And something we talked about in the county meeting today was that Summit has restaurants and hotels and a hospital. Lakewood or Golden Jetco has hotels and a hospital and everything. Clear Creek does not have any of those things. And so it's something that everyone in this county seems to be pretty aware of, is like, we can't keep people here. We're always trying to get people out. Having shelters is great if we need them, but it's, you know, hopefully the general public isn't thinking like, Georgetown's a great place to stay. We're really the worst place in this.
But where I'm going with that is true, it's like all the variables of, you know, it's one thing when the highway closes because we're wet versus a snowstorm. We have a storm like that where it's an upslope and people get approved, but they can't get back down there.
Mm-hmm.
And I blame it on the initial of, if it's an issue, close it and go in, where people can stay, don't send them up here where they can't get back.
So that's
All the stuff that we've gotta look into and be on top of.
So in my discussions, because I had debriefs with CDOT like 2 or 3 times a day, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and that, they got more heat than ever, because they should have closed it down way before and way down where the resources really are. So they understood that, because by Friday, so Wednesday was terrible. Thursday, they made a decision to not allow any semis, because the semis were causing wrecks. So they did change, and then by the next time, like even this little snowstorm that we had just recently, they changed their tactic. And then, you know, we didn't have anybody coming to Georgetown, because they closed it off early. But this upslope was so different, because it was closed both directions. And people in the middle were kind of stranded, and the more that we sent them east was actually worse, because they got like 3 feet plus of snow. And so it was like, you better make a decision now, and CDOT stalled and they didn't make the decision. And I think that was part of the learning curve for them too, of like, they should have called it early.
Of course.
So, and I think the other thing too is the whole, when the snow started coming, it came so hard that we had to change tactics immediately within like an hour, because our crews could not plow fast enough. And the parking lots that we had designated were filling up so fast with snow that by the time that we plowed, if we sent cars in there, they were gonna get stuck. And we couldn't get them out, so that's where we scrambled and just squashed that whole idea about the 80 parking lots. We just kept them trying to get back on the interstate or close as possible to where resources were. But most of them went back on the interstate, and it was just about 100 people that was left. And those are the people who were holdouts. They were stranded, they couldn't go anywhere, and that's where we made the decision at the very last moment, we can't send them back, we're gonna go to the shelter. So in that sense, it's really hard to predict, because we didn't know that it was gonna come
That's
in.
good that, I mean, there are different times, you know, when we first talked about this a couple of months ago, it was more like, oh, shut down for a couple hours, why are we just leaving the people on the highway? And, you know, threw out the idea of a shelter, and oh my God, all of a sudden, you know, we needed one, and it's good that we had one. But I agree with you, I think that the actual numbers, the statistics of, you know, to the best that you're able to pull together would, you know, will be helpful in the planning for the next piece. And, you know, maybe it's not gonna be this major snowstorm, but it's going to be some event. And again, it may not be winter, it could just be, you know.
Amanda has something to say.
Yeah, Amanda's trying to join.
Oh,
Well, where I was going with that too is, the plan should be in place for the task at hand. Not just this works for everything, this is if, you know, daytime and nighttime is clearly 2 different, you know, and look, it's scary people, like you said, if there was other people left, fair enough. If it was people that didn't know what to do, you know, in the middle of the night, it's much more scary today, especially in dark time, it's pretty dark in this town. If you haven't been here, it's like, oh, that's scary. Daytime is awesome. So I mean, like, looking at that, you can't figure it out overnight, but taking that into account, hey, this is a situation, see that it's out there, sends people up. Yeah, that plan works for that situation, seems like.
but that email letter that we got, that you got, that Rick got, is why you all did what you did. And that's what we needed to do.
Oh, for
You know?
sure. You can't not do nothing in the past.
That's what's so right. That needs to be on the cover page of our plan,
Yeah.
because that is exactly why, you know, everybody stepped up and we
Well,
want to be
and
able
you
to do that
prepared.
again. Yeah.
Like this last upslope, it wasn't near as bad, but I slept on the recliner till about 1:30 in the morning, and I didn't get a text from you and the highway was open, so I went to bed. Cause I knew what we had went through already, you learn every time you go through one of those,
And that
Incidents.
is a good reminder, that when we put everything back together, it needs to be in there. Cause I still remember walking up and seeing this girl cry. And, you know, like, she's my daughter's age, you know, and you kind of reach out and all, what, but it wasn't just me, it was Kasia, it was Tracy, it was Tracy's dog. You know, it was like all these components, people working together, and it completely gave hope. And allowed people to get the rest they needed, I mean, and a mom is like, you know, shouting praise because you
sure.
guys did something. So it's like, I'll never forget that, but none of us should forget that because it took all of us working together.
The
Yeah, I,
people were very,
going in
very
the morning, I actually enjoyed spending time with some of those folks and seeing where they were from and how they got stuck and everything else.
Yeah,
They'll remember us.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have a lot of opportunities to make it better, and I think we will, so. I can go through them if you want, but it feels like we're.
But maybe next snow season. Let's kind
Yeah.
of hope this.
Well, you have, feel free to, if you have other comments too, we'd like to hear. And, we are gonna make it better.
Hey. Yeah.
Getting late.
Getting late, I know.
Pond hockey, let's talk about pond
I
hockey.
know, this is what everyone's waiting for.
Sorry to make you stay the whole time.
So I asked, well, we had one meeting so far, I think we have 3 scheduled. Is what Jess was wanting to do to get the public's feedback. This is Jess's report back to me. And so you have it, but for this sake, I'll just read some of this. Strengths, community ties, and just such a short period of time, the energy that came with this was incredible. How many people were excited, residents, business owners, staff, their own crew. We've just never seen energy like this for an event, and it was contagious. I mean, I'm sure you guys got to meet the organizers too, and it was just something we haven't done. So the energy was incredible. Staff came together to support in a way to use supplies, and, you know, all departments come together was just, they came with a can-do attitude, and it was fun. They made it fun. Security was strong, seen all throughout the event. Again, these are strengths. The police department was able to have, their rangers, you know, they were able to get a contract to have rangers in. I don't remember how many that came in. Do you remember, Keisha?
There were 6, I think.
Okay, so we had rangers, and we also had people staying late because of threats that we heard of somebody not happy about the event. And officers stayed late and actually spent the night in their cars so that that one person wouldn't do something. And it was really, really bad. And so it was just amazing to see that security team have that heart, like, you're not gonna mess this up. And we're gonna be willing to stand in your way.
They had great community relations too.
Yeah, they talked, they interact, so I think that was a good thing. Parking concerns were really minimal. I mean, we were concerned even as staff of how this was gonna be when we made notifications, we had the sign, you know, like, expect heavy traffic, and it really wasn't that. They had a professional crew, they knew how to park them in really well, and did not have any negative impacts on the backside of Main Street or Clear Creek Drive. I drove around constantly just to see, and it was ready to kind of like, you know, go to fight, like, you can't do this, and I didn't see any of that. I was really sensitive, because like even in Major Anderson, they put up tape and light, because they were afraid they were gonna inundate, and it's like, nothing, zero, no issues at all. So the parking was not a concern at all. Kurt Sukup was really generous to let us use the lot, and then their crew went in there and identified even valves that were exposed. You guys found an exposed wire that I wasn't aware of. Kurt Sukup is aware of that now, and Dan Wester is working on that too to get that fixed. So, but these are, you know, minimal things. Weaknesses, the shuttle route took the hockey fans from Cabin Creek to a very limited place. And I think if we would have planned this better, we could have had a better plan to make sure that people understood that this was it said free shuttle on it, but we could have said to downtown Georgetown, you know, like, this is an intentional shuttle to downtown. Could have been better with that. I mean, the plus side is CCMRD did not charge us to use the shuttles. So that was a good thing. We're trying to have a better relationship of partnering with CCMRD. We're helping them and they can be helping us. And so that has actually turned out really well for both of us. Business involvement was lacking from the presence, from presence down by the field, compared to the lack of foot traffic downtown. I think this is another thing that became aware in our debrief and discussion is there's this mindset that we have to embrace but yet let go of. Like, we can't expect every event to be a downtown event. Nor if it's a downtown event, that it's a lake event. You know, it's like, we can't accommodate, we have to trust that event is for that reason. However, there are things that we can change, like we could encourage the businesses to have booths downtown, I mean, at the lake. So, you know, but there's just, go to where the people are, don't expect the people to come to you. So part of that is helping our businesses embrace that better. And at the same time, could we not do something downtown? You know, could we have the after party, one of the after parties downtown? And gear that up so that and let that be part of their program so that they don't have to have a tent here, we have it downtown. So that's a way, they're willing to do anything. This is this group, they're like, hey, give us ideas, we'll change. But I think that was something that it came up as an opportunity that we can make it better. Another thing too is an opportunity to really embrace this even more as a town. Like we talked about potentially trying to find banners, maybe that's ARPA funds too. Getting banners going across all of Argentine that has hockey themes and stuff on it. And so we say, we're a hockey town. We're gonna embrace this because we're gonna have multiple tournaments. We'll have a big one and we'll have a smaller one. But we embrace the hockey, you know, mystique and see the decorations. We encourage our downtown to do more hockey theme kind of stuff. So I think that that's an opportunity for us. I think another issue that came up is, some vendors were complaining about being charged a percentage of their sales because it was on private land. I think that we could work that out next time to make sure that we put those vendors on town-owned property, because it's just a fee, that's a very small minimal fee, and I don't even know what it is, it's like $100 or $50 vendor fee. It's very insignificant compared to 15% of their gross sales. So, I did get some negative pushback on that. Threats, the lagoon side residents, you know, part of the whole thing with the lighting and the sound, this is a threat to the event of like, how can we make this better long-term if it is hard for residents to adjust to this? So far, I have received only one complaint from the whole town. And so we want to be sympathetic to make sure that this person doesn't feel like this is a threat to this one. So some of the ideas we had come up with in that group is possibly putting the speakers on the opposite direction so that it would be broadcast towards Cabin Creek, you know, on that side, as opposed to being broadcast towards the homes. And also likewise with the lighting, I don't think none of us realized the lighting was gonna be so bright. I mean, my whole bedroom lit up, and especially, we had that snowstorm, Friday night. And that one was a challenge because they were trying to remove the snow, but it got to the point where they were playing, it was fine, but it kept snowing. And so they actually, got up at like 3:30 in the morning, and that Zamboni had a super bright light that also woke me up and everybody else up because it was bright. I think we just have to communicate that with them to accommodate, to do something different. So having lights shining down more as opposed to keeping straight, that could be something, or adjusting them to certain angles so it's not facing the residents. So I think those are things that we can work on, I know the group is also willing to work through. So that's a nutshell, that's a summary, you can read it in more details.
Mike had suggested too, that came, was that maybe we put some of the rinks on the other side of 22nd.
On the big lake?
Yeah, and maybe we do something with that warming hut. You have, you can heat that thing, it can be rented out to vendors or whatever, and make it more of a destination on that side.
It's a good idea. The pros from talking to the participants, the hockey players, they absolutely love the venue. They said this was way better than Dylan's because the parking lot was so great that they could literally park, take their bag and walk straight over, and it was convenient, it was really easy for them. It's gonna be a challenge if we have to have two sides of how that's gonna work.
That's still walkable.
It's still walkable.
Right,
There's parking there, so
and you're limiting access on that road anyways, because you don't want people coming in behind.
And we do
Your
use
house
less
to my house.
lake parking in the winter than we do in the summer, so yeah, we do have more parking down there.
And we didn't seem to have a problem with the ICE drivers and their parking, because we pushed them at the very end, and so that didn't seem, so it is a possible that maybe we can have two different sides.
And that could limit the impact, because I mean, eventually we're
Right.
gonna have more residences
Exactly.
on the west
Yeah.
side of the lake, and
And
so
they
we
may not
can't,
wanna have in those 5 new apartment buildings having music blared to their house
Yeah.
either.
so.
Yeah. So, or other ideas were maybe have it earlier and the evenings were not gonna be so loud. You know, so we can move venues around, because during the day, they didn't really have much going on, because a lot of their participants were in some county, because they had already reserved the year before. So that one, they tried to accommodate how people were gonna be transported back and forth and events they could be doing. So we're trying to rethink all that, and even trying to connect more with, Loveland Ski Resort, trying to encourage people to go there more. And Easter Field was another one we're trying to tap into, so people could be staying there and have parking down there too. So these are just ideas that, we are in the process of talking to them as well. And this group is also planning on bringing more events to Georgetown. Not necessarily on the same scale, but other events during the whole year. So they do like 50 events during the year. So anyways, that's the snapshot of that.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? Okay.
I move to adjourn.
Oh, hold on.
Thank you. I'm sorry I had to run out again.
Wait, we're not adjourned yet.
Big things. Bighorn Crossing update, and so we're in final engineering, I mean, all that's been approved. We had a meeting on Monday with everybody, including the state. So the state will do most of the inspections, because this is, modular built, the state is now taking control of all of that. So none of that is gonna be inspected by Safe Built. The only part that Safe Built will do is the utilities once the utility is finished with their whole build, from that point to our mains is where Safe Built will inspect. They will hardly do nothing on this.
In the foundation.
In the foundations, the fire suppression system, they may have some comment on that, that's what we're working through. But we are all coordinating right now, we have a phone call with 30 people on it, or a Zoom call with 30 people of what people have to do, what's the next steps.
So are those inspections still filtered through us as Safe Builts were, so we're still in sync with the state inspections? Because typically the state kind of does their own thing when they come out and do.
Yeah, somewhat.
We've informed them that they have to provide the inspection to us, so.
Within a certain time frame, so that we're not.
Yeah, but Safe Built will not have authority to trump the state though.
I understand that, but if the state is providing us copies of their inspection, we want them in a timely way so that they, I mean, just.
Yeah.
Public health.
Yeah,
In the past, right in the past, that meant, because we used to use the state for our electric.
Yeah,
And so like, but I can't remember, the state always notified Safe Built, and I think you guys probably got it. That's how I did it as a builder. I got it through Safe Built, even if it was state, went through state, like.
but if the state has taken this over so much more,
Can we
do
say money?
do they still work like that? Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
that,
I'm curious about that.
Yeah.
too.
but they're doing everything. Everything, especially if it's prefab in a facility, they will have to do inspections at the facility to send it to the state. The state will then come on site and do when they're installing everything. So Safe Built doesn't even oversee that, so the state is basically doing all of it.
so is that process, I mean, you may not have an answer for that, but just our staff time in processing that extra level of permits, is that something that we need to look at on our fees?
Safeco gonna give us a kickback, so that we get, the state's not gonna do it for free, somebody has to pay that.
Don't
But
say
that's our
kickback,
time involved.
kickback doesn't sound like a good way to term, you know.
What's that?
Don't use the word kickback.
Yeah. Well, you know what I'm saying, I mean, like it all costs. And can we, is it possible for us to, I mean, you know, I pay a permit fee to the town, then the town pays Safeco a certain chunk of that. How does that fall in the state? Is Safeco still charging us the same amount, even if state's gonna come and inspect it? That's curious stuff that I have, because, you know, maybe we pay them, what, I mean. we
Or
don't-
there's more inspections because they're going to the facility to
Yes.
inspect, exactly, so
Yes.
how are we?
Yeah, we kind of need to know how that's all gonna work, I'm
Yeah.
curious myself, but it's.
And then the last update is just Excel, and so Excel, the watershed protection permit has been issued. So that's the first one, now we're gonna have a meeting, the 28th. Correct. I have so many meetings all the time. This Thursday, and this one is to discuss the bypass, the 30% engineering plan for that. And so this is the bypass, before they're gonna do all the water sampling and sediment testing. This is to deal with the long-term water, so it's not going through the reservoir, taking that sediment back into our system, it'll bypass that. So that's what this is gonna be discussing. And then the other thing is, Cindy Neely wanted to make sure I told you about it, is they are, they're considering another idea for, the power. The powerhouse, and that's like a micro turbine idea, where it's become a redundancy for power outages for municipal and county use only.
They being Excel.
Idea.
No, the town.
Either the town or the county's also been approached, just to set up a microgrid facility.
Yeah.
As a backup.
As a backup, so there's grants, Flo from Dr. Cog is also involved in this to kind of help us walk through. So, that is, we are considering it to kind of look to see all angles of what this would cost, but it's a good thing, it's a redundancy, but it wouldn't be for the town, even though that was designed for the whole town, the redundancy would just be for the municipal use. Or county municipal use. So.
Like
that's
a
all.
generator for the town and the county.
Correct.
You guys came for this meeting, I know you're interested at least in some of the feedback, we appreciate you coming, but did you wanna weigh in on any of these issues that we've talked about? I don't wanna exclude you from a.
I can't believe y'all make it through a meeting this long, not go to the bathroom or something. I would like to say one thing, that, James, the gentleman that was talking earlier, he's my next door neighbor. And, he came over to the house a couple times that night. I had no issues with, I did have one issue and I went straight to the planners and they resolved it immediately. And that was, my concern was security. That's my background, so, and I see this, I'm not seeing anything formally from the town. And James had some requests of me, and it was immediately, no, we're not going down that road. And she had a lot to do with comment, you didn't see anything, you haven't seen anything. But he did have, and I was kind of disappointed in this, it was just maybe 6 people that were, they were drunk and they came up through his property, which makes him liable. And then they just piled all their equipment right in front of his house. He didn't see any of this, and I didn't talk to him about any of this, because it would have just made it worse. But I think that whole thing was fantastic. She's kind of in a neutral, she was on the far side.
I was trying to calm everybody down.
But, his heart's in the right place, but it's just, we both have, demons from our military past, and we just deal with them differently. And, I fish with him quite a bit, and we try to calm him down. I felt bad that I told him, no, here's my fishing buddy, I'm telling him, absolutely not, we're not gonna do that. And he left, but I thought it was a great event.
Well, thanks for being the peacemaker over there.
Yeah.
I thought it turned out good, I think, had there been more time for planning, I don't think he would have reacted the same way. You know, but then we had a couple of weeks and I think it went together pretty good.
Don't worry about
Under
exploding down.
circumstances.
Yeah, see, you don't wanna see that, and I don't wanna see that. There'll be a lot more than 6 drunks throwing their stuff up on our lawns.
Obviously, the timing aspect was really hard, but I think everyone needs to recognize though that our willingness to work with these guys is gonna be so important to us for other events. And it really, and that's important to our overall economic picture. And I certainly respect the fact that people felt frustrated by the short timing, how we had to adapt. But I also think it's really important for residents and especially the businesses on 6th Street who struggle in the off season to have that hope that we could be able to improve their outcomes through additional events that will not be planned in 3 weeks. Because we took one for the team on this one, you know?
I think so the morning, the day that it snowed, and it all kind of blurs together, but I went out and I was helping them shovel out their areas. And I was talking to some of these players, in particular, there was some that were coming out of Texas, and I asked them if they had, I knew that, what's the barbecue joint on the circle?
Scooters.
Scooters.
I love those guys.
I do too.
And
Nice.
so I asked them, did you try scooters? Because I knew they were setting something up, and they had said, well, there's nothing, no place to eat. We didn't see anywhere to eat. So something was off. I'm not sure exactly what it was, and I'm sure it got straightened out afterwards, but again, a little more planning. And if they're probably planning on eating in, you know, Summit anyway. So, yeah, given the time you guys had, phenomenal.
And I think the shuttles, you know, had there been a little more communication, the shuttle to town would have resulted in more people, yeah.
I was a little bit, I'm not trying to lengthen this. I saw a lot of things that happened that at first I'm like, my head was spinning. That I wasn't wrapping my mind around. And James brought some of them up. You know, areas where it's strictly no parking, we're gonna allow people parking. And after you think about it, it's like, that's a lot of people coming in here, they're gonna have to do something. But, what I struggled with was we had a fire pit and we could have fired up a fire, and because I saw a lot of kids cold, and I just don't like seeing that, and their moms, and, you know, they're there to support their family members. And I'm like, you know, what liability do I take on? You know, and there's so many rules about fires in this county, and, you know, I don't agree with all the rules, but, you know, it is what it is. So I think there's some things that, just a little bit of time and planning, and it's gonna be a phenomenal event. It really is, and I think it's very important for this town to make it, so I'm done.
Well, thanks for your support.
My kid has to these seats because my butt is.
What's up?
I know exactly how.
So back to your motion.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, there were 2 seconds.
Got it.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Bye.
Any
I'm
opposed?
so sorry again, guys. Slight work.
All right.
Thank you.
We maintained the quorum.